development, rural development, rural entrepreneurship, rural innovation, and so on. And we also had the privilege of actually visiting such a place in Pandharpur, and some of their students are here today, as well as Pandharpur is just south of Pune, and which is also a holy place like Banaras is. And one of the things that I saw was the students there are all children of farmers and local retailers and so on. I wouldn't call them impoverished, but they are really rural folks. But they are mandated to speak in English on campus, but the courses are taught in Hindi and Marathi. And they put on a show of their innovations. And quite honestly, they could teach some of the IIT kids what rural innovation is all about. I mean, I was blown away. And so I tried to talk to them about entrepreneurship, about access to markets, bringing the products to market. And clearly, the three things that that stood out was their crying demand, not only access to technology, but access to markets and access to finance. Those are the three main ingredients for success and for successful transformation of the rural areas. Not only amongst farmers and agriculture, but also to create jobs that they want to do. So for example, we are currently working in Agarwal, where we are trying to set up 3 factories, one for making ginger powder, one for turmeric powder, and one for honey from bees, without killing them. And it is being funded through a grant from the Electrical Engineers Association, the US IEEE. Our concern is that I don't think that they really have a sense for cash flow analysis, for net present value, pricing their products and so on. So I hope that this kind of a roundtable discussion on finance, microfinance, how it works, etc., and some of the issues related to compliance, and when we are in the US trying to invest in companies here, small companies and startups, and we can take equity, there's no issue. But sending money to them on a regular basis can be a challenge with FCRA and all that kind of stuff, which may or may not be applicable. So the main outcomes that we want to come out of this session today is, number one, how do we educate them in the first place? How do we get the information to the villagers on how to, apply for loans? How to, what is microfinance? So the basic education. And for that we have Mr. K.S. Rao from Aditya Birla Group. They have several programs, and I'm hoping that he will be the person who talks to us about that. And then we also have Sir Govind Singh, who's an entrepreneur himself from Banaras, and he started his local bank here, and we'll hear a lot about how he got started and listen to his life story, if you will, and how his bank interacts with potential entrepreneurs, etc. We also have Ratan Agarwal, who is my partner at Wheels, and he also runs an organization called Carbon Group, and he will talk a little bit about that. And he has done a lot of work in Africa and also in Guatemala and other places, and he is now the Vice President of Wheels, and hopefully he'll take it over from me sometime next year, early next year. And we are also joined by Mr. Rajesh Tripathi. He was a partner with Grant Thornton in India, and currently is a senior partner at Rhythm Corporation, which is a very well-known global accounting and CPA firm. But he has also been a guiding light for Wheels Global Foundation in terms of compliance. And any monetary transactions across borders and even within the country, which are not for profit with tax consequences, requires a lot of understanding on compliance. So without much ado, I would love to start the event with each of you talking a little bit about some of the other speakers. Unfortunately could not make it, who are listed on the program. Mr. Mukul Jaiswal from Caspar Microcredit, and Professor Rakesh Singh from the Department of Agricultural Economics could not join us. But this is a roundtable discussion, and I want to make it interactive. We've got plenty of time to answer all your questions. So I would love to hear from the younger people here as to what's on your mind. Okay? So without much ado, what I'm going to request each of you to do is to take about 5 or 6 minutes, 7 minutes to talk about your life journey. How did you get into microfinance or education or your line of work? And what does that mean? What is your objective of serving the marketplace? So why don't we start with you or Govind? Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Suresh, and thanks BHU and to all the sponsors for inviting us. I saw the type of environment we have got here. We again feel like going back to campus. Whenever I come to BHU, I feel like that. Yeah, coming back to the points Suresh just raised. So two things, from our side, we are a bank now, but we started as an NBFC MFI, and that is how you can say I started my journey. I came to Varanasi in 2009. Just to correct you, Suresh, I'm originally not from Varanasi. At many times people ask me Varanasi kaise aa gaye, but I'm not from Varanasi. I'm from Uttarakhand. But when I'm choosing where to go to start microfinance, I chose a lot of places. But I chose finally Varanasi because at the time the penetration level of microfinance, microcredit, and underprivileged society getting served was much lower in case of Varanasi. I mean, Eastern UP and Bihar in fact. And the density of population was high. I thought I'll not go to any metro, large cities, I'll not go to south. Because it's also important to understand local language, culture, environment if you want to microcredit. I mean, suddenly I can't go to Kerala tomorrow and say, yeah, I'll start microfinance. I can't do that part because I don't understand that space that way. So I was in Mumbai for a long time, in 1990 with multiple banks, and last 9 years I was in ICICI Bank. But when it was setting up your own, and especially in microfinance space, I chose Varanasi at that time. And the other plus of Varanasi at the time, besides the population which you can serve, is the equal well connectivity even that time also. So Varun with Modiji's, being MP here and his support, I think we see the infrastructure has really upgraded a lot. In fact, I mean, whatever we are seeing today, it is at least 3 to 4x better than when it was 15 years back. In fact, but even at the time, it was an international center, so there used to be flights from here. That the Mughal Sarai was one of the biggest railway junction. So I think it was well connected. And Varanasi was considered the capital for Eastern UP. So UP is the last state we are aware that it is bigger.
It's the 10th largest country in the world.
7th or 8th largest. 7th or 8th. 6th will not be 10th. It is 7th or 8th in fact. 6th. So that's all right. Close to 23 crore plus population of this state. And plus you add the adjoining area of Bihar also. So Bihar is another around 9 crore population. And the BPL segment for these two places is very, very high. That is, you can say, motivating factor for me to come to Varanasi. So I had come only 2 or 3 times before setting up the shop in Varanasi at the time. And we started from scratch. And when we started from scratch, and because I had worked a lot in ICICI Bank also, I used to do micro banking business for ICICI Bank. And I had been to, I had a chance to not only see in Indian context what microfinance or what social business can do, well, not only say microcredit, but what social business can do. Even we had a global visits when I had gone to Brazil, South Africa, other places. How other places are doing. Those were the motivating factors. I came with a mindset that we'll create a profitable company, but a truly double bottom line company. Being a banker, it's always important to make whatever you do sustainable. I mean, you can't work only on charity. I have a very strong view on the only charity part. I'm very upfront about this part. In fact, Mukul has been a good party. Had he come, a good debate with Mukul comes because Mukul is running Cashcore, one of the most respected MFI in this country, and it was set up in 1997. I mean, more than I can talk about him, and it was done by a originally Canadian national. Then currently the person who set up this company, Professor Gibbons, currently he's settled in Malaysia. There's some issue with the mic. Oh, some noise part. Yeah. So it was set up in 1997, and they're the oldest one in this. And when he came here, I think the background helps. In fact, a lot of people. He went to South first. He went to Hyderabad and those places where Shares, Spandana, Basics, SKS all had set their institutions. So people told that you think that what Professor Bangladesh has done, and it is replicable. It is absolutely can be done any place. Yes, I'm 100% sure that can be done any place. I'm talking cash per part. Then if you're so confident about this, then go to UP and Bihar and start your operations there. In fact, this says, yes, I'll do that. And he went to Mirzapur. He didn't come to Varanasi also. He was in Mirzapur. Initially, in 1997, he came to Mirzapur and set up there. I mean, you can say, I mean, with all due respect, there may be people from Mirzapur. Mirzapur is your 0.5x of what you can see in Varanasi. So, वहाँ पर गए, he set up his operations. Later, I think from connectivity angle, after 5 or 6 years, he started his, moved his head office to Varanasi. And today also, in terms of their process, in terms of their mission, what we call, in fact, around 6-7 years back, they decided not to work even in Varanasi. They say, urban area, बहुत लोग आ रहे हैं. Why should I work in urban area when so many players are there? They have moved completely to rural area. But that is the type of mindset we have seen people. And he is, as I mentioned, Canadian national, Malaysian national, and he's around 80 now. He doesn't come that frequently. Mukul is the MD and CEO of that institution. So I think the type of, when I was moving from ICICI Bank and coming to Varanasi, and people knew that I'm not from Varanasi, a few of my colleagues called up, कि पागल हो गया क्या? UP बिहार जा रहा है. It's a negative area for lending, in fact, from microcredit angle, and that is the statement I used to get. But I told the way I have seen it, I think if you take care of the process part, if you take care of your target segment, and if you deal well, and especially process is most supreme in this case, if you take care of that well, and most importantly, if you take care of the client protection principles, which people normally, जब growth के phase में जाते हैं, तो people normally forget that part. Any place it can be done in fact, and that's why I chose Eastern UP and Bihar, which again even today people say it's very tough from all angles. I mean, operating in this area. Obviously, during last 13 years, we have seen a lot of people have moved to this area. They may not have gone to interior, like Cashflow, we are also a player who goes into interior. Almost 75% plus our branches and operations are in rural and semi-urban area. We generally avoid large cities. I mean, some pockets we are there also, but that is what we operate. When people come from outside, they are normally in the Varanasi, Prayagraj, Gorakhpur, Patna type of places. They don't try to go to interior of Mhow or Azamgarh or Gazipur or Jaunpur of the world. I think that is what important for us. And as you mentioned that, I think double bottom is very important. It should be sustainable. It should be scalable model. Otherwise, the type of requirement we have got in financial inclusion space or overall microcredit space, you can't meet the requirement. I think government has done a lot of initiatives, and especially when you talk of Jam Trinity, I think it has worked a lot during last digital part. I think India is among the much better placed countries globally today. And that is also helping us. But the type of requirement in terms of health space, in terms of trade space, in terms of financial requirement space, in terms of education, I think it's huge requirements. Private sector certainly needs to support government sector also. Government cannot alone do that part. I was hearing one of the debates, on ground floor, which mentioned that in US type of places, 50% funds come from private sector, in all these things. In Indian context, around 10% only. Maybe India will reach that place. The corporates are growing, large corporates are becoming here. I mean, earlier there were no large corporates in Indian context. Top 100 companies were not from India. That used to be the case. Things are changing now, and we'll see this graph improving. In fact, from 10%, maybe it will improve further. Coming to Utkarsh, when we started our NBFC-MFI operations, so we're very clear that it's a double bottom line, and we need to do a lot of from the social part also. So we also started our foundation. Mathur happens to be chair of their foundation also, and we work a lot on the health, education, and child development and entrepreneurial development space. By now, we have more than 15 lakh plus beneficiaries across 6 states now, and it started from this place only. And the experience has been good. And I think yesterday when we were talking about how the client or the beneficiary looks at it, whether they are looking at a charity with Lelo or Baad mein Nigel type of things. But our experience is mixed. In fact, in this case, people do value for money also. And there are a lot of programs like even Birla Group runs that hospice programs. That people generally pay money. In fact, as a premium. Premium is, I'll use the word, it is subsidized. It is not as costly as the real cost of hospitalization or medical is today. But people do pay for that, and even the persistency what we talk of, 80%, 90% people renew their premium also. We do a lot of health programs and education programs. In some cases, these are paid ones also. In some cases, these are, you can say, free of cost. And in some cases, there are the partial cost is recovered. And our sense is, the people are generally, positive to such initiatives. And if you really like, and in microcredit space, I think our experience has been extremely good. This is the most fertile area as far as microcredit is concerned. Our experience so far is this segment what we are talking of. Capacity is a challenge, but intention is never a problem. I think, especially when you are, giving money. Yeah. Even today we believe that intention is more important than capacity. And I can say with certainty, after running multiple banks, doing State Bank, ICC and Axis and type of banks, and now running Utkarsh as a bank and earlier Utkarsh and NBFC MFI, and running our foundation, the type of customer we deal with, they are better than even the hard collateral. You ask any risk guy, bolega secured loan karna, secured loan karna. We say this is a better security. The social collateral is so strong, it is stronger than even the collateral. We have seen even COVID scenario also. People certainly went under a lot of stress, but the portfolio bouncing back in MFI sector has been much faster than many other sectors. In fact, even we have seen housing and LAP in the case also. There are a lot of delinquencies today, but not in this event. People bounce back very fast. When demon happened, a lot of challenges were there beginning, but people bounce back faster. So the challenge could be of capacity, because even COVID period, after 2.5 years also, our experience when we go to the hinterland, there are at least 10 to 15% people who have actually lost their livelihood, they have lost their job, they don't have anything to do in fact. They are yet to come out of it. So there will be real stressed people, and they take some longer time to come out of it. But they are, with all good intention, they will not run away from any place. वो यहाँ से यूट्यूब पर नहीं भागेगा, वो यहीं पर रहेगा, कोशिश करेगा कि he is with his community. That happens. In terms of the cost of, especially from credit, there is no problem. They are willing to give credit cost because they see the changes that is bringing to their life. I have met many customers. In fact, there are people, even when I go to field, they will say, okay, 2009 we had taken a loan from Ashok Vihar branch of yours, and we have taken first 10,000 rupee loan. Now this time we have taken a 70,000 rupee loan, and we have grown this. Recently I had gone this, around 2 years back, I had gone for a study done by IFC. IFC were invested from day one. For last 13 years they have been supporting us. We had gone for a study, and she was so proud, the lady was so proud that we have taken first loan in 2010, and since then we have been taking fresh loans, but now both of their kids have studied, and they have started their own enterprises. Small enterprise, I'm not talking big enterprise, but they have started their own. They have become self-employed rather than going for a job. They have become self-employed. I think that is the beauty of this model. We have more than 3 million customers today, and all are self-employed, and all are women in fact. Wow. So another experience is that when we meet these people, they are very focused on their next generation. I think this happens with this generation also. मुझे लगता है कि मैं नहीं कर पाया, मेरा बच्चा करेगा. When you go to this segment of society, the BPL people, उसको अपने बच्चे को पढ़ाना है, and with all due respect, sometimes the quality of education may not be there, but बोली 50 रुपए देके मैं वो private school में पढ़ाना है. There are a lot of private schools and schools in hinterland also. 50 रुपए देगा, उसका दिमाग में यही है कि उस बच्चे को पढ़ाना है. So intention is not an issue. Next generation उसका अच्छा हो, that is their intention. They are willing to pay, and wherever they can pay. अगर मैं बोलूँगा 50 रुपए, 100 रुपए, 150 रुपए टाइप का installment है on a quarterly basis, they are willing to pay. I'm talking for the other than credit services. They pay for hospitality, they pay for e-clinics, all those they are willing to pay if this is reasonable. And another important factor is when we talk of microcredit, we work a lot on the, I'll not use the word we can remove poverty, but supporting these people to come out of poverty, the women empowerment, and the equality in society, in fact, because the money goes to the women, in fact, in that house. And another important factor, but my experience for entire these 17-18 years, because I had worked in ICICI Bank also on this segment, the men folk don't do anything. With all due respect, I think the majority of men folk in this group, 95% work is done by women folk in hinterland. Yes. सब कुछ means सब कुछ. I come from उत्तराखंड, सर वहाँ पे सिर्फ जो खेत जोतना होता है, हिंदी सब समझते हैं, खेत जोतना है, वो पुरुष करता है, उसके अलावा पुरुष कुछ काम नहीं करता है, वो पत्ते खेलता है या शाम को दारू पीता है, with all due respect. And that is true for Eastern UP and Bihar also. The men folk don't do. Women starts at 5 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock in the evening. She does everything, including the money she has taken for it. अगर गाय भैंस लिया है तो भी काम करेगी, छोटा दुकान खुला है वो भी वही काम करेगी. They are so focused on this, and that's why the credit, the quality of credit is so high because they are focused. If I give it to men folk only, I'm not sure कि वो शाम को दारू भी घर चला जाएगा.
So I can share a very quick story with you. Wheels Global Foundation actually implemented about 110 toilets with Habitat for Humanity, and what we found out was a very interesting cultural thing. Those toilets were meant primarily for women who used to get up early in the morning before sunrise, so they can go and do their thing in the field, open defecation, if you will. But then after 6 months, we found that most of the toilets had been converted into storage rooms, and there was very little regard to the needs of the women there. And as a result, most women in villages where we were told don't drink any fluids during the day, and it hurts their health because otherwise they don't have any place, to the bathroom, if you will. So that cultural issue is a big challenge.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And more so in this northern part of the country. South is still better. Northern part is the bigger issue.
I see.
On our programs, as I mentioned, we do help financial literacy. We have done a lot of programs even for, so we have two types of programs. One is basic financial literacy. People started with the one-time program, two-day program, but we started with a curriculum which was, helped by Axion, the mother NGO, developing that program. It's a continuous basis program. The other also for the enterprises. So what happens, we have seen past also a person who has taken 10,000 rupee loan. Even after 10 years, he or she is taking 15,000 rupee or 18,000 rupee loan. Actually, if you look at from the from the value of money angle, it has actually gone down. So we try to develop some people on the basic accounting part. Because if you are going for a formal segment, you go to State Bank of India today, tomorrow give the loan, I will 2 lakh rupee loan. They won't get unless they are able to show the basic accounting to them. So we did that for some of the enterprises there, and they could develop. Currently, we have more than 3,000 where we have an enterprise loan. I'm talking the initial loans for group lending, but we have now more than 3,000 people who have gone to graduated themselves to enterprises. They come with their small balance sheets and stuff in their own way.
Wonderful.
In their own way. We did a lot of work on the health initiatives, and especially when you go to village one, there are a lot of government machinery is working for sure. There are primary health clinics, a lot of things are there, but those are effective near block levels only. They don't go to interior. And interior, you find a lot of RFPs in fact, and what type of prescription they will give, very very doubtful. So when we went with the qualified doctors only. They were qualified doctors who went to these places. That has helped a lot. Many times we take women doctors in fact because they can talk to these women in a more free way. That has helped a lot. We ran a program, as I mentioned, for the kids. There are more than 500 kids which have gone through that. Last time, around 3 years back, Professor was also there, and we had our chairman, who was Chief Election Commissioner retired. He was so surprised to see that those bachas were trying to have some physics level experiment they are doing at 6 or 7 standard bacha. Because in the school the quality of education not that great. After 6 or 7 standard, they are still can't maybe even things like ABC or 1, 2, 3 or the table. They are not well versed with that. So quality of education is not there. We try to focus on certain things, from these places, and we see that there are very bright boys in these places also. We also do a lot of work on the entrepreneur development. So we had a partnership with City also. Someone talked about City recently, and the PSIG program, which was run by DFID. We are partners with these people, and we have run almost for 5,000 people in adjoining districts entrepreneur development program. And we chose some of those people who could grow from there. And being a bank, it helps us because we can give financial support as well as the insurance and other supports also. So I've seen a lot of people have developed from these places. I'm not sure we have done much because the requirement, as I mentioned, Eastern UP itself is almost 7 to 8 crore population, and almost 50% is BPL or 1 or above. I think technically we can say these are not BPL, but it is slightly above BPL. So the requirement is huge. We're trying to do something in this space, and we'll continue to do this space. Just to give us one more thing, when we got a license from RBI for a banking license, so a lot of people told that Varanasi nikal jaiye, Varanasi can't run a bank. We don't know. I mean, we have started in Varanasi, will remain in Varanasi, and that's why even getting a place in Varanasi for a banking type of setup was difficult, and that's why we take a place of land, and then build our own
beautiful building.
I think I recommend all of you please to have a look at the building. People say that this is one of the best buildings, at least in this area, and compare any building in Bombay.
It is.
Because it's very important to work for this segment, but at the same time you should have professional ethics, you should have compliance, you should have regulations, that everything is important. Good focus on IT. I think the way digital has happened, that is also helping us a big way. Now we have, even for financial literacy, we have digital classes for our people, and we are seeing a good traction from those people.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I've made a lot of questions for you, but I wanted to stop you there because you talked about physical education, financial education, which is what Mr. Rao is most familiar with and does. So maybe you can take over from there and tell us a little bit about your life journey, and how do you do financial education in villages or anywhere for that matter, where literacy is very low, and language is a barrier. So please.
Thank you so much, Suresh. I think without this, okay. Yeah, thanks for this opportunity. I need to thank Dr. Sarkar and Sunny for having me here. Indeed, I'm grateful and congratulations to you all that we the kind of work you do. This morning, after you all went for the ideal village, we manage over 3 lakh crores of assets today with around 1 crore investors. Over a period of time, we have taken financial literacy in the country itself as a mission. I am part of Aditya Birla Group for the industry education, but I also work very closely with the mutual fund industry. I am part of the financial literacy committee, which you would all seen mutual funds IA campaign, which is part of us, which is coming in. So like over last 8 years, I think after this campaign, we have launched mutual funds penetration was little under 5% of the GDP, and today we are at 12%, which has created a massive impact. And SIP has become like a sachet, an FMCG, right? The way we run today 12 crores of SIP folios, and it has become a buzzword even in the smaller towns. And for me, when Utkarsh was talking, when Govind is talking about, I belong to the southern part, and which I could see little opposite side in terms of people approach and when you reach out. Honestly, today when I look at these villages, there's poverty does exist, but their mindset is changed so big. And I belong to a small village from southern India, and from my town today we are a little over around 20-25 executives who work across, and we ourselves adapted that village. And today it's one of the prospering village, and it's a truly ideal village. And we work with the regional rural bank, to the government, and to the literacy part, and we educate these children and empower these children to come back. And now the second generation is also coming back in a bigger way, and they are contributing. And many of them are citizens across other countries. Now they come and contribute. Sometimes we find where to channelize this surplus, which is the next village to adapt. That's the way things are shaping up, and I'm very glad. And when it comes to the financial education, we have used the methodology of community engagement as a piece. We thought that is a better way to, one at macro level we do it industry on the digital piece, and we work. And here community engagement is working us very well. This community engagement piece is like, for example, I take a community Fauji. We reach out to the army camps and talk to them the language of there, and then we can convey how, why, and what they need to do. And when we come to the villages, it is like they are taking the credit. And I think somebody said the access. When you have an access, but you need to have the awareness. Sometimes that access is making you to take a loan, and there is unfortunate part in Indian context is, unfortunately in Indian context today is a lot of people, they take a loan. Earlier that agriculture loan, I am part of Ramya Bank, I was working with them very closely, and I could see. And after that, they have an intention. In any case, this is going to get wiped off. There's a loan waiver will come, and doesn't need to pay that mindset, and it's a very challenge for that mindset to change. Then we started educating, that is you may be getting there one day waiver, but the second day you may have to pay. Then how much you need to pay? And people who are sincerely paying, they need to pay the price, because that guy is already paid. The guy who is not paid is getting wiped off. Then we thought education could be multi-contextual. We need to get every rupee what you are earning. And when I said earning, there is a couple of things we said is the village atmosphere. The first thing is, their earning potential is much lesser. And how you can make that earning potential and their spending potential or spending methodology, and what are the priorities they make. As you rightly put it, the next, everyone want to save for their children education. And then we could see that's a bright future. And even when we adapted a couple of villages, and at Aditya Birla, what we did is we adapted 10 districts in the country as a financial literacy mission, and we reached out to the villages. And we thought after initial work when we did, it is better we can educate the schools and teachers, then they can spread the message in a bigger way. Likewise, we adapted 100 schools and we put this into a curriculum. Then educating the teachers, we have this abhiyan called. We call in English it is a financial education for the educators, FPFE. In Hindi we call it as even some parts of Uttar Pradesh we just started, which is Adhyapak ki Arthik Shiksha Abhiyan, and how they can go back and educate, because most of them they are more respected in the village, and they talk about why the financial literacy is the most important. Whether they are taking the loan, whether they are investing for the child, or they are not investing, they need to do. And some parts of the southern part, for example Telangana, there is all these, most of them they have the farmers, and they get reasonably a good money from the government of Telangana in 2 quarters. It's called, I think it's the scheme name is called Paitu Bandhu. It's like they paid every season in advance per acre some 7,500 rupees. And sometimes they need money, sometimes they don't need money. If you don't need money, what exactly happens is, as Mr. Govind said, it will go to it will add revenue to the government again to buying something else, and then you will have a liquor and you have a liquor. Then we say how that small savings can make a change in their life, and that is how things can shape it up. Probably that's where the learning is happening, and the model we predominantly, a framework we created for financial literacy is first create the education model. What is the content you create, which is the language. Today we run in 16 languages. Some of them are plug and play, which is called Nivesh Pathshala. How you need to look at. After the education, it is not education just how you can empower them rightly, and then how you can engage them appropriately. We take that empowerment right, and empowerment, we have people who can go and work. It could be a distributors, it could be a various agents across the country, or it could be bankers who can work with us, they get there. And then how this is enriching, that create an example for the people. Somebody has done something, this morning somebody was speaking, I think yesterday I was listening to Madhusudan Sai, Madhusudan Sai. The way he put it very nicely, the culture in the rural India is that spirituality. It's they look at, if I am prospered, that I will not confine to myself, I go and preach to another 10 people, and how that is happening there. And the last part is all that need to lead to. As Mr. Govind said again, rightly, sorry for quoting you time and again, it is we are not in for charity for always, and charity can be at one extent, not fully. How this expansion can happen to all the stakeholders. If I work with Utkarsh Small Finance Bank and here, or working with a Gramina Bank, regional Gramina Bank in somewhere else, how we all can get benefited out of these initiatives. Means this way, this 5 E's framework can help all of us, and it is helping us to sustainable. And while designing these models, we are also looking at in a way, is this model is unique? Are you doing any adding value? Is this a scalable model? And if this model is scalable, is this the sustainable model? Then how we can have a holistic approach of entire finance. For example, at Wheels, you have a wonderful theme of working on water, sanitation, or health, or energy and education, and for everything to well-aligned wheel need to have well-oiled, well-lubricated, and managing money is very better lubricated, and we keep telling. And we also bringing some parts of the CSR piece. For example, from asset management industry, some of the guys are doing some of the work. How we can integrate and cooperate and collaborate and work together in those spaces. Some works on the water, some works on the sanitation, some works on the education, some works on the sports field. All of us can come together, then you can get a different kind of a trust and bonding in the space. When you are communicating to these people, it is not the language matters, it's how your intent, you connect, and you continuously do it. They know you are coming for a day, or they know you are coming for a lifetime. And how you can create that is the most important. And so far in 100 places where we are in 10 districts we have done, it's a fantastic the way. Probably we get a lot of inspiration from our current Prime Minister. It's when he said Har Ghar Tiranga, or when he said Har Ghar Jal, we went with a campaign. We run one community engagement campaign called For Her. This is educating women in India, every household in India. Women need to, if I'm educating a man, I'm educating one person. If I'm educating women, I'm educating the entire family. And how we need to educate, and we have created a campaign called Har Ghar Gruh Lakshmi and Gar Gar Gruh Lakshmi Har Ghar Mutual Fund. Then some villages, when we adapt some, there is a small town near Rajmandri, so it's a 500 households. Today 450 households got a mutual fund portfolios. Other side we talk of poverty, this side we talk about the prosperity. If microfinance is a vaccine to the poverty, probably investing is a booster to the prosperity. Probably we work on that combination.
Thank you. That is very interesting. Thank you very much. So,
Excuse me, is this in Hyderabad? It's in Andhra.
Andhra.
So, we heard about balance sheet. You mentioned balance sheet. You talked about, mutual fund investments.
You know, I have heard some statistics that less than 4% of the people in India actually pay taxes. So, you know, how do you get the farmers to understand the tax consequences, the accounting issues, balance sheet, cash flow analysis, which are traditional, you know, things that are required for planning purposes?
And for, you know, when you start a company, you want to know what your growth is, what your forecasts look like. So tell us a little bit about it, so how your organization, from an accounting and process perspective, compliance perspective, tax perspective, how do you interface with folks who are borrowing money in the microfinance space?
So going back to, so you brought up a point which is one of the big concerns in India, you know, that people don't pay taxes. And farmers, you know, absolutely, for them to go out and say, hey, what am I bringing at home? What am I spending and how do I save that money? And then what that savings that I'm doing, where do I invest that? And when I invest that money, and how can I pay tax? So that education is very important for the farmers, which is one of the biggest lack. I mean, you've seen that, you know, that they do make money. It's not that they're not making money, but the money coming in, the money going out as expense, and what piece of that money can stay back to reinvest, and then that makes you know, profit for them, and that's where the tax line is. That education is very much important for people at the grassroots level, which is missing. That's what people say. A lot of concerns in India is that people are not paying taxes, farmers are not paying taxes, you know, and that's the right approach of doing it. Going back to small businesses, the startups, I would say startups, when they are getting into the business model, the vision that they have, that projection, that today they're going to start their business and where the projection is going to be next 3 to 5 years, that projection is going to decide what is going to be their tax liability and how can they be compliant. Keeping in mind that the threshold of tax liability, it varies for small businesses as well. It's ranging between, you know, if you're making less than 10 lakh INR, making 10 crore INR, what's your tax liability? The threshold changes. For companies that are in the startup space, usually they're in the loss position. So for them to really pay taxes is not that, because they overall show that they have losses. So companies, when they start making profits, is when they should start considering that what is going to be my tax compliance requirement. But does it make sense that you're making losses, you should not be compliant? You have to be compliant. Because the government says that even though you're making a loss, you still have to file your taxes, your direct taxes. You still have to make sure that you're paying your indirect taxes. Any services or sales that you're doing that is going to trigger indirect tax in India. You also have to make sure that you are having proper accounting books that you manage, proper accounting balance sheet is properly managed, you know, for you to prepare the tax returns. Also making sure that if there's any cross-border transaction happening, small businesses, small startup companies are now looking at expansion. And with Modi's vision that, you know, startup companies, boosting startup companies, in my experience, I have seen in the last 4 years, a lot of startup companies are looking at expanding outside US, outside India, getting into the US market, getting into the Canadian market, or, you know, UK market. So that visionary that Modi has initiated is also bringing the vision of companies, startup companies, to look at cross-border expansion. The moment you get into cross-border expansion, the whole diaspora of your compliance has changed completely. Because even though you say, I'm a startup company, I'm not making money in India, you have to do your compliances, tax filing, but the moment you step into a foreign country and you set up a legal entity or start a business, your compliance portfolio will trigger in, because the local compliances in every country is slightly different. Even though this is a common law country, but the compliances are pretty complex. And I'll talk more from the US perspective, because that's what I do for my bread and butter. I do cross-border transactions with a lot of companies. Moment a Indian company comes to the US, you have to make sure that you are setting up a proper legal entity, the type of legal entity you're setting up, what compliances will get triggered, and you have to be compliant. Plus there will be compliances in India as well. For your whatever expansion you're doing outside India, that compliance requirement will get triggered from the transfer pricing perspective. You have to make sure that you have proper transfer pricing. Third thing I would say is be very, very careful, especially for the startup companies, that when you are setting up a footprint in a foreign soil, you have to make sure that you're not sending your employees, your leaders to a foreign country to make decisions, because if that happens, you have an exposure in the foreign country to be compliant. What does that mean? It's called permanent establishment. So let's say Govind sir decides that, hey, I want to set up an entity in US. And he comes to the US, he sets up the legal entity, and he becomes a board member, or he becomes the CEO of that company. Now, sitting in India, if he makes any decision for the US company, the compliance aspect is going to trigger for him as an individual. He will have to file a tax return in the US, plus his entity in India will have to file a tax return in the US because he's creating a permanent establishment. So that compliance will trigger automatically for him. So we have to be very careful. Whenever you do any cross-border transaction, you have to make sure that you are compliant. As far as Suresh asked me about my firm, as a part of Rhythm, we are full service tax accounting advisory firm. We manage anything from cross-border perspective. And I'll say one question came up, yesterday we were talking about getting into Egypt. We gave an example that, hey, I'm going to go to Egypt and maybe I'll just hire one person. We don't have any footprint in Egypt, and I want to hire one person. What compliance is going to trigger? And I said, the moment you hire one person in Egypt, that person works 365 days in a year on your direction, Indian director, Indian company's direction. The Indian company has a permanent establishment in Egypt. They'll have to file tax return in Egypt. And secondly, you'll have to also look at the treaty between India and Egypt, that what the treaty talks about. So every country has a tax treaty with most of the countries. And that tax treaty will talk about what is the permanent establishment requirement. You cross 90 days, 183 days in a calendar year or fiscal year, and if P gets kicked, which is called permanent establishment gets triggered, then they'll tell you what compliance is also get triggered. So that compliance is very important. And lastly, before I wrap up, I'll talk about money. We have all talked about money, when cross-border money is exchanging. The biggest concern is what kind of money is leaving India. RBI is very, very, very notorious when the money leaves. Govind will talk about that, what documentation you have to go through. When the money is leaving India, you have to do proper documentation. You have a legal entity outside India, but the money should be for what reason. You have to make sure you do all the compliances as per the RBI regulation. The third thing is, if a foreign company is trying to set up an entity in India, they have to be very, very, very compliant, because you have to make sure that all the compliance in regards to RBI filing gets done. You have a proper transfer pricing, because RBI is going to ask you, if you come to India, you set up a legal entity in India, why are you setting up a legal entity? What is it going to do? And you have to do capital infusion. That capital infusion will have a proper compliance that you'll have to take care of. So that's on the corporate side. Going back to the last thing on charity. Now, Wheels Global Foundation, I'm one of the advisors. So when Wheels US wants to transfer money to India, they cannot do that. Why? Because RBI is not going to approve it. Why are you transferring money for? Because Wheels US does not have a legal entity, a direct subsidiary. If they had a direct subsidiary in India, they could have transferred the money as to their subsidiary and have transfer pricing in place at a cost plus markup. Then the flow of money would be easy. But if Wheels does not have a presence and they are sending money for any charitable purposes, you have to have an FCRA approval. And as everybody knows, Modi ji has really gone behind foreign not-for-profit money, NGO money coming into India, monitoring it very closely. And since COVID, FCRA regulation has become very, very stringent. Prior to COVID, it was still a little relaxed, but in COVID and post-COVID, it has become very stringent. They're not giving FCRA approvals easily. It is a long process, so make sure whenever any wire transfer is happening, any money coming into India or leaving India, you do proper compliance. Otherwise, you will get picked up for, by the RBI, or if you're doing it from the US is going to, pick you up for any audit, or also if you don't do proper AML KYC from the US, there's jail time in the US. So, any questions I'll take up.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you very much. We are a very litigious society in the US, so we are very sensitive to compliance and especially when it comes to microfinance and credit. There is a movement effort to have social enterprises, social impact enterprises. There are companies like Ivy Cap Ventures. I wish they were here because we had approached them to also be part of it. Started by some IIT guys in the Middle East and raised a lot of money in the United States for specifically investing in small startups in India. And we will get to that. because I do have a lot of questions on what Priya and I talked about yesterday, and we'll get to that. But I'm going to request Ratan. We've been talking about global issues. He's been doing a lot of work in Africa and also in Guatemala and others, and of course he's now
he's now doing a lot of work with wheels. So why don't you talk a little bit about where you are with carbon and wheels and the lessons learned specifically in the water area, which you're trying to do with starting a small micro enterprise, manufacturing those filters, as example.
So wonderful, good to learn about the complexities of compliance and taxation. So, as Suresh mentioned, I'm part of Wheels, also part of my time gets spent on a sustainability solutions accelerator platform called Carbon Group. Carbon Group is essentially, briefly, identifies highly replicable innovations from all over the world, especially the innovations which have crossed a threshold of maturity and are already accepted by the target communities in terms of value for the product or service. And our goal is to further mature those innovations, those business models, and then take them to create carbon copies all over the world. So we have slowly built a portfolio of about 11 such innovations across 5 domains, starting with education. We have solutions from Kenya, one from India, and then around 3 from US, different parts of US. Similarly, in health and in gender-based violence, we have a solution from Armenia in Central Europe. So like that, we have built a portfolio, and what we have seen is a couple of observations, is that every community, when we face the problem, is community often finds a solution because they know the challenge. Often, many of these solutions are very innovative, but they struggle in scaling. And that is a huge opportunity for many NGOs and the Wheels Global Foundation to identify right ones and how we help them scale. So just briefly sharing a couple of related takeaways, learnings. So in the microfinance and even in the non-profit space, often we make the mistake of assuming what the beneficiary wants. And there's a presumption about starting with a solution and assuming that that is what the beneficiary wants. And then you realize they're not willing to pay because the fit is not there. And then often the product or service is pushed free. And then you realize after a few months it has gone complete waste, like the example of the toilet. So in case of one of our portfolio companies, is called EcoFiltro, and they have developed a point of use clean water filter for use in a typical household to address bacterial as well as chemical contamination. So average household can get very effective, safe water. The interesting experience of that entity, first 9-10 years, they have gone through 3 different pivots. That means 3 different times they realized they failed in terms of the business model. First time they rolled out the product with the NGO called World Vision, one of the largest non-profits in the world in terms of funding. And through the World Vision, they gave away about 100,000 filters free. And then 6 months later, when they did the survey, they discovered 90% of those were sitting at flower pots. So that was a lesson for the founder, and he swore that he's never going to do any free product because it works, it's a counter productive, and you destroy the value no matter whether it's a rural beneficiary or whether it is urban beneficiary. So that was, I think, like the toilet example. I think that's very important whether you are working in the non-profit space or whether you are working for-profit space, to really take time to make sure what you are designing is really what the user wants. And design it at a price point where the user will see the value compared to other alternatives they have. So that's a fundamental lesson in any any service or product or solution you are trying to take to solve the problem. So coming back in the microfinance side, a couple of other learnings worth sharing there. So when the filter was rolled out, to make it easy, about $35 filter costs about, let's say, 2,800 rupees. So he thought it will be good to offer 6 installments, 6 to 12 installments. And so in the first few months, there were not many takers. And when he again did the market research, the feedback was, we don't want to be indebted for 12 months. Can you offer us 3 installments? And so again, the assumption we can make can be really very different what the community wants. So their willingness to pay, but again, the design of that microcredit has to be right in terms of what the user wants. So the cultural norms as well as the community expectations has to be aligned even in the microcredit. So I think another learning is that it's not necessarily people are looking for the free product or service. What they're looking for the right solution at the right terms. And I think this is where I see work by Utkarsh and other 12 small finance banks is really breaking the new ground. Because in Carbon Group we work in nearly 15 countries in Africa. And across the continent I have not seen yet this level of mature institutions bringing the microcredit in institutional fashion. They are doing many things like self-help groups, they name them SACCOs, similar concept, but not in the financial services. So this is very, very refreshing to see, and I think that will have a huge impact on our rural growth. So what I would love to hear from, as we go around from Utkarsh and KSR is, so in fields as we are working on supporting many of the initiatives, we are trying to find how we can bring these in an affordable manner. How can we help NGOs to bring these? And if you look at our website, we talk about many of these, maybe $1,000 contribution to an alumni can help one family or one community with that particular solution. And I think this is where the role of microfinance would be very, very crucial. For example, one of the solutions we have in the energy space, RooCard, is a wonderful innovation from South IIT Bombay and I think IIT Kanpur graduates. And for about 50,000, 55,000 rupees, it's a kind of a freezer which does not require any energy, no electricity required. And it can help the farmer extend the life of his produce from a day or two to almost 7 days, which can make a big difference in terms of the pricing he can get because he can go longer distance and can make sure the wastage is reduced to almost zero from the current 35-40% wastage levels. But again, that kind of product at even at 55,000 rupees is a big hurdle for a small farmer who is trying to monetize his produce. So I would be curious in terms of how easy or difficult it is. I'll take 2 other examples on the same microcredit role could be game-changing. So we have another initiative we are supporting is called Save Farmers, where we are helping farmers with borewell recharging. And working with a couple of NGOs, we have brought the cost down per intervention from about 28,000 rupees per borewell recharge for a farmer to about 8,000 rupees with a number of changes in the business model. But even at 8,000, I think we will have to have some microcredit as part of the business model. And again, that can make a big difference in the velocity of penetration with this solution. So I think the microcredit will have a huge role. So love to see how Wheels can partner with Utkarsh, with other small finance institutions, because other motivation for Wheels is to really identify these proven effort by NGOs and see how we can help them scale at a national scale. They're already doing good work. We are not adding any value there. Our value is how we can take the technology and business model knowledge to take them from 5,000 farmers to can we take them to 5 million farmers. And that is where I think microcredit will be crucial. So I'm glad to see, and I think from KS Rao, the work you guys are doing in the mutual fund, because in India, typically the wealth creation is very low at the rural level. People are putting their money in the cash, in the bullocks and all that, and that doesn't really create the value. In fact, it is losing the value with inflation rate being 7-8%. So hats off to you guys to bring the awareness from 5% to 12%. That would have a huge impact. Why not the rural villagers should benefit from the wealth creation of the investment products? So thank you.
And to add to Ratan's point, that also the SOBUS kind of effort we are doing in terms of starting social enterprises
Right.
at the rural level, that's where the microfinance will be very useful to
Exactly.
offer to the social enterprises.
Right, the RU card is a perfect example of a rural business entrepreneurial innovation, and we are hoping to have a structured model for social business group in Pandharpur. I think we have some students from Pandharpur here in the room, no?
I think there are a couple of faculty members and students.
Okay. So Pandharpur is our organized way to promote rural entrepreneurialism, leveraging engineering college as the academic and R&D institution, and the business leaders providing the mentoring and then the structure setup to help the rural talent convert their ideas into rural businesses. So I'll pause here.
Thank you, Ratan. You know, that's a classic example of where compliance and tax issues and cross-border investments become important, because we are what we call a 501c3 organization in the United States, which means by charter, we are a charitable organization. And as a charitable organization, we can make donations and we can make grants, but we have a lot of limitations on what kind of investments we can make. So, or whether we can take equity in a position. So I'll give you a classic example where microfinance could play a huge role. So during COVID, we implemented 320 telemedicine operations, all in rural areas. And the model that we used was a kind of a joint effort between Wheels and a local NGO. So let's take, for example, Rural Development Trust in Anantapur. They are supporting 8 telemedicine operations. We are doing similarly 8 operations in Pandharpur through the Sri Vittal Engineering and Research Institute. And some of them are here, the doctors who are supporting it, okay? So the model is, I'll explain it very briefly, for $1,000, which loosely translates to about 80,000 rupees, a telemedicine operator who is also an entrepreneur gets a complete kit, and the kit includes a smartphone. It includes some 3 or 4 peripheral devices for taking blood pressure, temperature, and so on and so forth. And he gets a software product that is loaded on the thing, which has got artificial intelligence built into it. And there is a list of about 30 questions. So when the operator goes and talks to a patient, he asks the 30 questions. They're translated into 16 or 18 languages. And depending on the answer, they are mostly yes, no, dard hota hai, ye hota hai, you know, so. And then by the time the doctor comes online, the system does some pre-diagnostics, so the doctor can then immediately, prescribe something. Now, we got a financial model around it, because one of the lessons we learned is that no initiative is sustainable unless there's an economic interest in it. We've done a lot of RO projects for water. Because it is free, after 3 years, nobody is maintaining it. It just dies on the way. Okay? But if you say, okay, you pay 1 rupee or 10 rupees per liter or whatever it is, then there is economic interest for somebody, and it's sort of, they take care of it. Okay? So the economic model behind the telemedicine operation is that we charge the patient 110 rupees per visit. Okay? Now that 110 rupees is then divided amongst some entities. 50 rupees goes to the doctor if he or she wants it. Okay? So in the case of Rural Development Trust, they said our doctors are free. Okay? In the case of Maharashtra, some doctors and our services are free. But there is 50 rupees available for the doctor. And the remaining 60 rupees is divided equally between the telemedicine operator and the software vendor who is based actually in California and with an office in India. So the math is simple. If the telemedicine operator sees 1,000 patients a month, okay, say 30 patients a day, if they are willing to work hard, they can make 10,000 rupees a month, okay, which is a fair living instead. Now, during COVID, we said don't worry about getting paid, we will pay for all the costs. So it was taken care of. We worked very closely with Mission Samriddhi and they were quote unquote volunteer entrepreneurs, okay? But they got paid. After COVID, so to speak, we said now we're going to start charging, and the farmer said we are not interested to pay, okay? But we don't want to let them go without health care, so we still are continuing in many cases. But in some cases, the entrepreneurs say I can't make a living if I don't make money, okay? So therein lies a kind of an issue that needs to be addressed. So then the question is who owns the equipment that we have given them? We have given them 80,000 rupees worth of equipment. Does it belong to us? Do we depreciate it and do we give it to somebody else? There are all kinds of issues there, ownership, okay? There is a license issue, okay, and so on. So my question is, these are real world problems, and I'd love to hear from you as to how you manage the loan determination process, where the credit risk is subject not only to their ability to pay, but also the cultural issues. And I've just mentioned very quickly what we heard from Priya Naik yesterday in this very room, where she said, look, there is a fine line between a donor, a grantee, and a loan. Okay, it's not very difficult to see how the lines get crossed. A loan becomes a donation or a grant. Okay, but in her experience, she said, when you make it very clear that it's a loan, her experience is that 97% of them actually repay them. Okay, we are experimenting with the same thing with student scholarships at IIT, and our experience is that more than 95% of the students pay back the loan. So I'd love to hear from you on loan recovery and also from Rao, how do you educate them or how do you change the culture of borrowing? So why don't we start with you and
So technically speaking, this is a very small problem for us. I mean, this is never a problem. Because to make it very clear from beginning, this is a loan, this needs to be paid, and when we start to microcredit, it's only for income generation. So we'll not give any consumption loan. I'll not give for buying a fridge or television set at home. Not for that. It has for income generation. And if I'm giving loan for income generation, then there is an expectation. Then there is an expectation that you'll be able to get this money back. If you're able to make some income out of it, you're able to get this money back. So that is the whole, you can say, device, or that is the whole structure we have been followed from the beginning. And that's why I kept, that's not been challenged, and that is, if you see the Indian context, microcredit is more than 3 lakh crore today. And it's really, it's one of the largest program globally and most successful. And now it is also attracting a lot of capital also. I'm talking commercial capital also, not just the social capital, but the commercial capital. So we don't foresee challenge in that. And whenever we do, even as I mentioned, we do enterprise loans where we do larger tickets like 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakh rupees also. There is a process, we go through the process and we assess the capability of that person and the actual need. The challenge with sometimes, I've seen that happens with donors and charity also. They are under pressure also because paisa dalna hi dalna hai. The moment you have pressure to put money on, and I don't know what is to be done with balance 1.5 crore rupees. So that, excess money, especially I have seen in charity or the donors days, that does happen. I have seen in Indian context also. And for example, we do this whole health program. Almost 80% that is free. So we have more than 7 lakh, 7.5, almost 8 lakh beneficiaries by now across the country. We have multiple models, including telemedicine, including e-clinics, including mobile clinics, all those type of things we have done. And our experience is that people are willing to pay money as long as it's reasonable. In some cases we are charging, in some cases we have not been charging also. But I mean, they find that if they find it suitable, they pay the money. And even some places we have moved from, you can say, free to payment structure. We have seen that the footfall certainly drops. In fact, suppose 100 people are coming, now only 60 people will be coming. When it is completely free, 100 will come. That is the difference. But people do understand that you also mentioned there should be a perceived value of money also. If there is a perceived value of money, they are willing to pay. So for example, I go to a doctor in Varanasi, the guy will charge me 1,000 rupees, first consultation, and Bombay they will charge 2,000 rupees. A person in villages and they may be in a BPL family, they can't understand कि भाई 1,000 रुपए क्यों ले रहा है इस चीज के लिए. But if the perceived value is for 30 rupees, 40 rupees, 50 rupees, they are willing to pay that money. We have seen that happen. People do pay money, but as long as you make one thing is very clear, and you don't differentiate between people, and that also happens. If I charge you and I don't charge Govind Singh, then there is a problem. You charge, you have your, so you should not try to customize for each one. You can do in a large, you could just so you can customize. I'll charge 10,000 for this, I'll charge 5,000 for this. You know, when you go to large hospital, they will say if you are in a premium room, you will be charged 10,000 for the same fee. I'm charging 3,000 for the other guy. So you can't customize that. You should one standard, and you make it upfront that this is the cost. This is what I'm going to charge. You know, even when RBI has come twice for the regulations of microcredit, the biggest point from their side is be fair and transparent and upfront. So charging this, please tell this is chargeable. Even suppose for all microcredit customers, will have their insurance, life insurance, because they're so vulnerable. If something goes tomorrow wrong, they will not get our money back. There are a lot of problems in fact. But they say whatever is the insurance premium, make it upfront. Suppose you're charging 1% for the loan amount, make it upfront. In fact, in our case, we give life insurance to both of them, husband and wife.
So the premium for the insurance is built into the loan?
No, we charge separately, and we'll tell them you have taken 20,000 rupees, there is 200 rupees premium for this, and this covers both of you, and you're covered for the full amount. Suppose we have paid 5,000 rupees and only 50,000 outstanding, we give back the money also to them. So they see a value. There is absolutely no problem in doing that. We have been doing this for our 30 years myself. There's no challenge at all. As long as you're making it, perceived value is okay, and you are making upfront that this is the fee. So I think fair and transparent is very important, and that's why a lot of compliance and governance issues come up. And we have seen a lot of positive changes happening in that space. And one of the things I think you are talking of things become economical or people can afford that, affordable in fact. I think technology is will play a big role in that. We are seeing the cost of delivery is coming down in case of internet. A lot of people are moving towards that, and that's our experience. Obviously inflation is there for now, but that's a different case. But otherwise overall cost of delivery is coming down for internet. And with this jam as I mentioned, the technology and the type of personal accounts government of India opened, I think the same time, and that is one of the mission what we drive also, the type of technology we are able to give in say in place like Bombay or Delhi, I think they are able to give the similar technology in internet also. Our people will go with tab and whether it's microcredit or even for our foundation also. And they are able to capture all data and deal with the customer then and there itself. So I think this digital part and overall automation part is helping big way, and we'll see a big change, positive change going forward next 3 to 5 years. Significant change will be there.
Let me ask you just a follow-up question and we'll go to Mr. Technology is now allowing you to have electronic transfer of funds. You mentioned the Janta fund, etc.
So technology is playing a big role in access to information, markets, knowledge, etc. How is your bank, leveraging that to make sure that the farmer or the borrower is doing what he's supposed to do, and how he's doing it? I mean, how are you using technology to do that?
In a big way. So if you talk of 6-7 years back, suppose the loan disbursement, it used to happen through cash only, hard cash. Today no cash disbursement happens. It goes to their account. Even if as a bank we can have their account also, but even if they are not maintaining account with me, it goes to the Union Bank of India account, Canada Bank account. Like they don't have to maintain account with me, but absolutely it goes to their account. So no cash handling as far as disbursement are concerned. And their data also now, and people have reaching that level, but they are also having app in fact. They can see their own loan book today. That is possible. It is only because of technology.
Real time.
Yes. And they get SMS in fact. The moment they get their loan is paid in their account, they get SMS from our side also. So I think all those are helping, especially in the internet becomes more important because now when flood happens in fact, there is a movement from their side to us and our side to their side. And especially UP and Bihar, recently in Bihar, normally once in a year we find flood will happen here. The technology helps in a big way in fact because we are using mobile technology. At least there is a communication between these two. Even you are not able to take the installment, there is information flow is there. And all these are helping in a big way. That's why I'm saying that in the next 3 to 5 years we'll see a sea change in Indian context as far as the impact of, and I believe that the way government of India has done on the UPI and Aadhaar and the mobile technology and Ratan accounts, that is going to play a big role for the BPL and you can say 50% of the population in a good way, in a very positive way.
So Suresh, if I can just have a quick follow-up question. So you mentioned your focus being on the income generation activity as opposed to consumption. How do you classify education?
In fact, Parfi.
That's what I was actually referring to.
You just came from there.
Right, that's what I was referring to. So Bank of Parfi right now, I mean, I think for the group's benefit, I'm not sure if everybody knows what Parfi, maybe explain it quickly. So Parfi is another initiative of Pan IIT alumni community. So it stands for Pan IIT for Reach for India. And their flagship program right now is in Jharkhand area, where there are 4 vocational programs, one for nursing education, 2-year program, one for manufacturing skills, 1-year program, and then culinary skills for those who wants to go into being the chef, and lastly construction skills. All of them, they have the same model in terms of taking advantage of the government schemes, which covers 20-25% of the cost, and then the remaining 70-80% of the cost is covered through loans, and right now they have, I think Bank of India is a big partner. So I think it's again very low risk, very high repayment situation, because the candidates are taken in only after the associated job guarantee from the corporate partners. So right after the graduation they get the job and they are having the income to pay.
So certainly we can look at
That comes through payroll deduction.
Right.
So the model is, let's say Apollo Hospital is one of the big hospitals, say we need 80 nurses next year. So they'll get 80 candidates for that job, and their expenses are loaned to them through the bank, but guaranteed by the job that they are getting, and there's a payroll deduction goes directly towards repayment of that. So it's a good deal.
And they are aggregating the overall loan activities, so for the institution also becomes highly optimal.
So Rahul, you heard everything here. How do you incorporate these changes and ideas and methodologies for repayment of the loan and cultural change that is required at that borrower's level?
It's definitely a challenging at this point of time, because the mindset is. Pardon?
Yeah.
Okay. And the biggest challenge which is coming from there is the mindset of survival. This is there in the mindset. And second is, as earlier, when Govind was telling, somebody needs a little amount, we pay more. The lending value, they do not know how much it has happened. It has got internalized to them. And third, after Chandra, if you can see, most of the money which is lying in the cash in the bank account, but they don't know what to do it. All that is transferring them to think at money very differently. And how we can incorporate is, recently couple of governments, I work with 2 governments very closely, one with the Telangana government, second with the Karnataka government, and both the countries. And Telangana government, what they did is, there are various loan schemes which are subsidized by the government of India, but given to the beneficiaries. And this will be changing the perspective of the people, why they need to pay the loan on time. And one of the conditions is a credit scores kind of it. And there is a guy who got for a taxi, to drive taxi, he is eligible for one of the schemes, and which he is got 6.5 lakhs rupees as a loan. And everything is sanctioned, and finally the banker, the Union Bank, which is the erstwhile on the bank, and was to give the loan. When he went, his score is low. And few things have happened. One is vehicle loan, he has not paid on time. Second is agriculture loan, which is he expecting that it is going to be waived, and he has not paid for 18 months, and his score is down, and he couldn't get that. And this message percolates there, and everyone is keen to go back and check what are the pending things from me. Means either a stick or carrot works for us, and most of the time stick works better than the carrot at this point of time to change the behavior. And that's one way you can look at. And second, when we are doing these educational programs, we put a lot of value education in place. I mean, it's nothing comes free to you, and end of it you need to pay for it. And when you pay for it, you are only postponing the payment. All that what you need to do is you ensure if you paid everything on time, and there is a lesser burden on you at the later date, rather than you become. It's a bit difficult, but it's a long process. And thanks to many institutions today, NABARD does amazing work in the rural area, and RBI is doing a lot of good work. Probably I look forward a day where all of us can come together and do that in a holistic way, because each of us are doing in a different perspective. Probably the wheels can get aligned, multiple regulators doing multiple things. Sometimes it's a duplication of work, duplication of resources, and interconnecting is missing it. And then what NABARD does for the farmers, what RBI does for the banking, what we do for the security market and capital market, all this can come together. I work very closely with now CBSE. We are incorporating as a part of new educational policy, the financial literacy is part of the curriculum. And recently we have trained over 10,000 school teachers at CBSE on financial curriculum, and we are also working on a faculty development program where we are incorporating how these teachers can go back and add to the community beyond their educating the children, why it should not do. And as a part of the process, I am just initiating a pilot. We educate teachers and we educate the students, and post that we educate the parents. And that will make whole thing in a different way. We are adapting into these 100 schools where we went, 100 villages. This can, if this can become a mission, all these things.
Sorry to interrupt, we have a spoken tutorial, very good innovation to help that kind of educational programs scale to much bigger numbers. So we can talk about that.
In fact, we intend to look at 10 lakh teachers in a CBSE forum. This is going to be a 10 lakh teachers, and which needs a lot of money to be spent, and we are bringing all the.
We can make it a lot more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely, and we have just made an attempt, and so far things are good, and that need to be scaled.
So,
Just to add one thing,
yeah, go ahead.
you just mentioned about the grading bureau. So one of the challenges for microfinance sector was to get a grading bureau, because the type of data you get from our clients was difficult. But in record time, I think one of the association, they made grade bureau possible. High mark was the grade bureau at the time, and for last 10-12 years now, grade bureau is up and running, almost 10 years now, and this is more regular than the normal grade bureau, which is being used by for me, for my and your accounts in fact. And the data submission is on a weekly basis, and it is ensured that they submit on a weekly basis. So whenever a customer goes for next cycle, first should be told that this is your grade score. And I have seen that even if you go to State Bank or India type of banks, they will take 2 years, 2 months, 3 months time to submit the normal grade score for which is done on a monthly basis. But this data is submitted on a weekly basis by all the players. So that has helped a lot.
Is there regulation support for that?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So,
Especially for this segment of society. जिसका कार्ड, पेन कार्ड अलग है, क्रेडिट कार्ड, आधार कार्ड अलग है, वोटर कार्ड अलग है, it's become difficult in fact. So they created a separate algorithm for this, how to identify the customer. That's wonderful work today.
Yeah, I want to add something. This is happened with the government of Karnataka. Government of Karnataka has taken things very seriously. This mindset of Bible is making the people which should they curtail from doing it. They never intend to do that. And part of the skill development, now they have taken new education policy, skill development, and educating people what is the financial discipline they need. And initially they started with all the district magistrates to get there, and now it's percolated down there. And a lot of CSR, a lot of companies like us, we are involving with them. And all that they are going to do is educating. It's education at a skill development level. Giving that occasional training, and part of the university, even financial literacy has come part of the university. And we started that. This part of the financial literacy, what they are doing is not just investments, even all that when you are borrowing, what to do and what not to do, and how you need to have a discipline. And there is some frameworks given to them as a flashcards. And for example, if somebody has borrowed 100,000 rupees for agriculture farming loan, and that will be a flashcard displays his house he can hang, and how he need to be paid. So he will never looking at defaulting, there is a debt, he is indebted, and we need to go back and pay. And the small things, but it makes a difference now.
wonderful. I think we should open it up. There are a lot of inquiring minds, and then we'll go to Raj and get his comments as well. Please go ahead. Introduce yourself and the question.
Yeah, I'm Vibha with
Turn the mic here.
Hi, I'm Vibha with Customized Energy Solutions, an India project in Jharkhand. We have set up a very small microgrid in Jharkhand to create their profile so that they are ready for borrowing that loan. Because for the first time borrowers, I think it is really kind of a challenge to get the even microfinance company to lend the money to them. So actually we had to step in to become a guarantor for that loan. So I would like to even check with you what is your process while giving money to the first time borrowers. So they typically work with the impact partners who would take the guarantee and they would take the kind of ownership of that project. So if something happens, they will get back the money. And other thing is the taxation that you talked about. So although we have set up our own foundation as a CES foundation, it is not linked to CES as an organization because getting the that permission was a challenge. So we have been told that it should take after 3 years you can file for FCRA. Then the CES US can transfer the money to the foundation and then only it can be channelized to the projects. So that is one experience, and I'll come back with the questions to you later.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anyway, our foundation is also trying to get FCRA done. Last 3 years is pending. They said we have close to 25 to 30% customers who are first time for credit impact.
Okay.
Especially we deal with this belt. Our main belt is UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh, which is most again difficult from that angle.
Okay.
So we have a large number of customers who are first time credit.
But you take the bank guarantee from
No,
anyone?
not-
Yeah.
See,
Okay.
the basic concept of how you define microcredit, it's a without collateral.
Mhm.
So no guarantee, nothing of that sort. It's only the what called social
Yeah. I
collateral.
also like
or
the idea
collateral.
of I think reaching out to even normal people as a social investor. So even on the Rangde platform, you are allowed to choose where who you are going to lend. So that is for even 10,000, 5,000, 20,000 rupees, and the person can see that who is taking that money. And actually, we are very proud to say that whatever money we had started investing in 2008 as a social investor, it has actually tripled. And then it is reaching out to even more and more people and helping them. So that is
It's,
very good.
it's a classic,
Yeah,
thing
no,
that
it's-
students would love that. It's a peer-to-peer
Yes.
microfinance model.
Correct.
Amazing innovation to match social impact investors providing the capital
Yes.
with the lenders who are looking for these small loans. So very innovative platform. I would encourage many of the BHU students to look at
Yeah, and you can
this as a
start
great
investing
innovation.
even with 100 rupees. You just put your 100 rupees, select who you would like to help, and just start from there.
And what's the name of that?
Rangde, R-A-N-G, rangde.org.
Smita, they presented at our.
Yeah, Ram
One of the part,
Yeah.
yes. Smita and Ram.
Smita and Ram.
Amazing.
Yeah, you started to say something.
Yeah, so FCRA, especially if it's a US company trying to have an FCRA in India, it's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be a nightmare, and approval 99.9% will never get done. That's the clear, message that we're also getting from the government of India. The only way option is that if you want the CSR funding, because you have a subsidiary in India, the subsidiary in India has to have the CSR money going for charitable purposes. If US wants to do any kind of charitable thing as part of the CSR, they should put that in the trust pricing. The trust pricing. So I'm sure US has a trust pricing with India. And in that, what you should do is that whoever does your trust pricing, say that this much amount of money per year as your intercompany transaction should be a part of the CSR funding that US will be giving to India. Or and routed through here. I don't think there will a markup is required for that, based on my experience. But that is the actual way of routing it, because if the US entity is trying to get an FCRA approval, you will never get it. It's a clear message from the government of India, because prior to COVID, we had seen that a lot of charitable organizations were shut down. The FCRA application has become very stringent, and post-COVID, it has opened up, but the documentation of FCRA approval has become a nightmare. So, that's
Any other
something.
question? I saw a couple of other hands go up.
Yeah, those couple.
Yeah, go ahead. Introduce yourself, please.
Sir, my name is Ananya Singh. I'm in MBA first year from IM-BHU and India. So my question is, like after the 2011 attacks on World Trade Center by Osama bin Laden, there has been really strict rules from US regarding the informal value transfer system, which is very, very prominent in Middle East, Africa and Asia part. So how does it, because the higher class is very well aware of is compliant with financial system and they know the loopholes, and maybe they only do these kind of things. So how does it affect the microfinance if rules is there, and how they, the adverse effects badly hurts them?
So, if I get your question correctly, you're saying that how US
Is looking into this, and how does it affect at the ground level to the rural people who we are talking about?
So, I'll first, so US has, after 9/11, yes, US also went through the same process that India has gone through, where they started looking at any funding that's leaving US, any amount leaving from US, was very microscopically monitored by the federal government. And I'll give you an example, my example itself. In 2012, I had wire transferred 5,000 to my dad, and within a week I got a letter from the FBI that where this money and what was the reason for the money. So US has also gone through the same process. And after 9/11, what the US government's mindset was that they want to basically look at any money leaving US, how to capture that in your compliance in the US for individuals or companies. So US came out with the Intergovernmental Agreement, which is called IGA, and they signed that IGA with most of the countries. And then they came up with the FATCA compliance. I'm sure you're aware of the FATCA compliance, the FinCEN compliance. So if you as an individual go to a bank here and you say that you want to open a bank account, and then once you open the bank account, you want to wire transfer some money to the US or outside US, your bank is going to ask you, you have to have a FATCA compliance. So what that means is that the US government, after they signed the IGA with most of the countries, once a year, whichever country US has signed the IGA will exchange information of which are the individuals who are sitting in India who are US resident, and which are the individuals sitting in India who have US bank accounts. And because of the IGA, the US government has come out with stringent compliance requirement. One is the consent filing, which is a part of your, if any individual has a foreign bank account, if I sitting in the US have a foreign bank account, and my average daily value crosses 10,000 USD, I have to file a consent form. I have any investment in mutual funds or any assets in India, which is as a stock market or any assets. You have to make sure that when I file, as an individual, I file my tax return, I have to file Form 8938 for that, to showcase what investments I have in it. If it's a company has any investments that they're making, they have to also file the 8938. If the company has bank accounts and there's a US director sitting as a signatory to the bank account, so there'll be two FinCENs filed. One is by that individual who is the director for the Indian bank account in India or China, that a US entity has a subsidiary and the subsidiary has a bank account, plus the company will have to also file FinCEN. So this is the technical compliance requirement that is triggered after 9/11 of the funding that was cutting into US or from US it was coming out into other countries. So stringent, and one example I'll also tell you, or one story, is that if your FinCEN is incorrect and you get picked up for an audit by the tax authorities, that FinCEN form, if they find that you have not filed it correctly, there's a huge penalty and there's a jail time. And I won't name the CPA firm, the big 5 CPA firm. One of the partners did not file that correctly for their company, for the client who was a large company. He was taken by the tax authorities. They had sent the police to pick him up from his office and handcuff him. So this is a very serious offense in the US if you don't report your bank account, your investment outside US. And the same thing India has started doing. That's why whenever you open a bank account here and you're trying to have any wire transfer happening outside from India, you have to make sure you're compliant with your responsibility.
Thank you, Raj. So those are
Can I
good.
add one thing?
Sure, sure.
So anyway, as a bank, we know there is a called FATCA. उसको हिंदी में FATCA बोलते हैं. FATCA is a पहली बार बोला मुझे बोला FATCA क्या होता है? FATCA compliance, which each and every bank has to. We also do from Varanasi office. But second point I want to take up, you were little worried about the funding for microcredit. With due respect to US, I can say that the Indian microfinance not you can say depend on any global market today. We have some linkages with the European market or US market, but very, very limited. Because now the microcredit at least 70% happen through banks only, and banks get local deposits, so there is no problem. We can always raise deposits for microcredit. And there are a lot of companies that are already listed, even SAP, there are 4 are already listed. They get equity capital from market also. I think funding is not a challenge. I think the channels what we are using, how we are approaching these customers and the clients and how we are able to take care of them is more important. Funding used to be a big challenge 20 years back, because there was a social, most of them are NGOs or society structures. Raising capital for them was difficult. The governance was very low, IT part was very low. Even banks are reluctant to fund the, you can say, NGOs and society. But today that's not the case. Now there are NBFCs who are 20,000 crore, 30,000 crore, and doing microcredit only. So in that way, India has become almost self-sufficient as far as the credit part is concerned, the funding part is concerned. So that's a good news as the Indian context.
What a great news, though. And not to be taken lightly.
No, it's very important point
Huge
for us.
achievement on part
Yes.
of India.
Yes, absolutely.
Could not have said that 10 years back.
So I'm glad that Smita is speaking up, because she was also the chairman of the Thai Global, small business entrepreneurship program.
Women entrepreneurship, I was leading it globally. And there's a big need for
Absolutely.
that. And there's a lot of
Turn
women
the
focused
thing on,
happening as well. There's a lot of initiatives or sort of banking that is very focused on rural women. That is for sure. But in general for women, also, when I wasn't just doing rural, just women entrepreneurship globally, there, especially in India, in several chapters of TIE. I was on the global board of TIE, which is the Indus entrepreneurs, and leading the women entrepreneurship last 2 years. It truly has become a huge force and a huge encouragement. So a lot to be said about just not worrying about the credit to get or loans to get or whatever markets. So more power to India to grow, because this is it. This is the opportunity for
Absolutely,
everyone
absolutely.
not to work for others, but to work for themselves. And there's anybody in any country that has genetically inclined to start entrepreneurship, this is the country.
Fantastic. I would like
This
to
is the
add-
country. I say that 20 years back, I came from US and my father picked me up, and on the way he said to me, ये जो दिख रहे हैं ना सब लोग सड़क पे, ये जो मोची है, ये जो ये है, he'd rather be his own knocker than knockary for somebody else. That is the mentality with which India is, and that's what will make India.
I would like to add to
Whole
that.
microfinance is exactly that, and that's exactly what we only should teach in the schools, in the universities. कि आपको किसी के लिए नौकरी करनी ही नहीं है. Once you leave the school, please, for heaven's sake, don't look for a job.
Especially
Create
government jobs.
Just create a job.
But there's a
चाहे
big
अपने
change
लिए
in
create
Indian
करें,
context
चाहे
also.
दो लोगों के लिए करें.
There's a big change in Indian context also. I've
And
seen
now
that
it's
change in
happening.
last 8-10 years. Things have really changed in fact.
And that is our whole belief of India's rise.
So that is a very important point, because I left this country 47 years ago, and I can tell you I see a cultural shift in the sense that there is no fear of failure. There was a time when people said, अगर हम fail हो गए, bankruptcy में गए, क्या करें? But that culture has changed, because if you fail, hopefully you learn something that you shouldn't repeat yourself. So a lot of very successful entrepreneurs have failed before they became successful. So there should be no fear of failure, and they should start. So I know that we started a little late, but I want to finish on time with respect to Govindji's departure. So I have one last question for you before we all bring this to a closure. We talked about a lot of different ideas. He mentioned blue card, telemedicine. Our goal is to have 10,000 telemedicine operations, in place. Then we also have another thing where we have a packaged solar fruit and vegetable drying unit, costs about $7,000, completely installed, from Energy Group. I'm sure that Varun also have several such solutions. Now, most of that is dependent on donations from people who want it. So somebody gives us, I'll give you $1,000, go start a fund. Can we put together a package which includes a loan, so that they have an economic interest in it. So we can go to an entrepreneur and say, you want to start a telemedicine operation? We will guarantee the loan for $1,000, but you put up your money first. But then he has a responsibility. Okay? So, I don't know if that is okay with 501c3 corporations. And we start something where we say, okay, 5,000, I think $5,000 for a RU card, right? $5,000 for a RU card and an E-card or a RU card. And we put together a leasing program where we say, you sign the lease, you are responsible for it, but for some reason it fails, then we will guarantee the $5,000. So, is that possible? Okay,
200%. We don't even think about it. That is what we are here for.
So is that?
That would be a good follow-up.
Yeah.
We can have it.
And then we can have a similar extension to other programs.
So two things, whenever someone wants to take a loan, I mean, whatever is the purpose, as long as the person is making some money out of it, there is no problem. And second, what Madam spoke about, anyone comes that I want to become an entrepreneur. My son, when he came from Australia, he said, I don't have any job anymore. That earlier he had done KPMG, he went to Australia and came back. He says, I don't do anything. Then first he started with a pet store spa, in fact. Right? Like, kya kar raha hai? Pet store chala raha hai. This is how he started. Then he had a tattoo studio, in fact. He said, I want to do something different. He had tattoo studio.
Why not?
He's running both. And third, he has started something on garments now. Right? In fact, anyone comes to my office and says, my job slow down, I want to start by something more. I said, bilkul bhaiya, zarur karo. Tell me what type of support I can do. For this student also, sir, last time I asked him, जो भी entrepreneur बनना चाहता, please meet me. I mean, whatever I can. I mean, I have also gone through a journey, but will support you in any manner. Any manner is any manner. And I'm in Varanasi only, लेकिन जाना भी नहीं है.
And I'll add to that, and what Siddhanti also mentioned is that.
Ajay, if you got the past, you're the chief of the
Yes, I was looking for you.
So whatever he represented, that's no.
So your entire school from here on should just be entrepreneurs. Then they should.
आपका experience
शुरू
थोड़ा
ही नहीं करना, job ही नहीं करनी.
आपका भी experience है, बता दीजिए. Here's the thing. Only 1% of India's youth goes to IM-BHU or IIT. Only 1%. 99% of the students who apply don't get it. That means there are smart people who are interested in learning and get into other good colleges, and they all should be job creators and not job seekers. Only people who, so please let us hear about your foundation.
Thank you. So, in Utkarsh Welfare Foundation, our focus is primarily on a livelihood, not like giving a fish, rather teaching them how to fish. And secondly, the focus is primarily on health and education, which happens to be the major areas of problem in rural or village areas. So that is prime focus. Now in that, we are doing different kinds of activities. In health, we have taken initiatives where we have mobile camps, mobile units, and of late we started e-clinic activity also. That became very important, where at different villages we have e-clinic. The villager can walk down to that clinic and it is connected over net to a proper doctor, and at that point we have facility available where there is somebody paramedical staff available, and they can always take the basic parameters of the patient and immediately send it to the doctor concerned, and the prescription comes in. Even we are trying to provide medicines also then and there. So that way it's getting penetrated, that proper doctors are not visiting rural areas. So we have thought of a different model where we can provide that kind of support to all village people, rural area people. So that became a very successful model. The second part, which is directly related to this theme of conference, where we are talking of village, ideal village concept. So of late we have started with complete village development programs.
Yeah, we are
So-
wonderful.
So it is a complete package to the village, which we have started doing, and it's not very old, but very recently we started doing, just like adopting a village. And even at village we will create infrastructure where it's something like village center, village development center. There we can have different kinds of activities which might include both for health and education and even otherwise.
We
For
should
the
definitely talk. You know,
Energy and right.
in another,
Energy, financial services, we put a BC point also that they can do transaction of their banking accounts also.
so in Agarwal, and yesterday the secretary, principal secretary was here from both rural and urban development, and we also have one of the sarpanches from there here, a panchayat person, and we adopted 7 villages, and we sent students from IIT Tirupati, IIT Gandhinagar and IIT Bombay, and they came back with 35 projects that needed to be done for a holistic development. And when we estimated the cost, it was $40,000 per village. So it's not something that breaks a bank. It's not very big, but it's not so, trivial either. So times 7, so you got, $280,000 that is required for 7 villages. So the question is that if we can do it in a manner where there is a loan, public-private partnership, where the local panchayat says, okay, we will come up with some money because we need the water, we need healthcare, we need education, and CSR companies are willing to put up some money, so that there is a economic interest and investment, then we can jointly talk about it and say this is now available for any village, okay? Not just the 7 villages that we adopted, and we will, create a platform so individual NGOs that we are talking about here can participate in that. So maybe we should, that's a takeaway.
That will be taken in the UP itself.
Sure.
And Utkarsh had a big advantage because earlier it started with microfinance institution. So they had deep penetration in rural areas and working with women, as in the beginning Govind Singh ji was saying, that we have focused on women entrepreneurship. So that's doing great job. So that way even the ladies who were not very happy in coming out and going elsewhere for their education or for health support, now they are getting practically at their doorstep. So we are doing that way a great job, and we definitely look forward to support from our US partners that we can always do it, because we are already into overall complete village development.
Wonderful.
And also, Suresh, I think I'll add something on that, that this is going to be a partnership. I know that India, every company has a CSR funding that they have to come out and audit that and submit that. So if we can partner with the companies as a joint program and say, hey, you be a partner in this village, 7, 10, 15 villages with microfinance, and they have the CSR funding. Part in the pancha, the village will raise the money. CSR money is there, microfinance money is there. All three join hands. It's a great way to raise that money and run the villages.
And then we can bring the different NGOs.
Sure. So with that, I'm going to request.
Just want to add one thing, even I'm getting late, so as Professor mentioned, so one thing I want to make it very clear, when we came to Varanasi, we told them we'll run a professional company. So I think whatever we do, we want to ensure that it's proper professional company. That's why I got KPMG on day 1, that as an auditor, there's nothing on ground. That is one thing. And whatever we do, for example, we are talking of e-clinics or the telemedicine. In fact, more than 70% of our own employees, we have 14,000 plus employee base right now. 70% plus have used their, even I have used myself twice in fact, the telemedicine part in fact. And it's working fine, absolutely fine in fact, and all are very, very satisfied. There is a partner of IM-BHU today which does this for us. 70% plus people have already used that. I'm my own employee, I have got the data with me. So I think that's very important for us.
We definitely want to learn from that also, because there are a lot of learning which can help our core platform there. Thank you.
So it's all yours.
No, so again, if you want to take just 1 minute to give your closing remarks on what your experience has been today and how we can collaborate, please go ahead and do that. Just a few words. Yeah.
I think it has been wonderful to interact with people and understand a lot of things from you, and we'll be always open for any type of collaboration. I think as I keep mentioning that the job or the work in front of us is huge. Government of India, state government, even others, I mean, cannot, reach there. It will take even few decades, in fact, if you look at the type of, India we wish to have. But I think we are at the right place and right time right now. And if we all put our efforts together, and I think partnership is the way to go, because each will have their own skill area, skill area where you can bring a lot of benefits to the table. So I think partnership will make a lot of sense. Last month I was in Uttarakhand. Went to UK, Uttarakhand. So I met the chief minister. We have done 10 programs as a government and private partnership. In fact, 3 were CSR out of, and there are other commercial programs also. So I think this can do fantastically well. We look forward. We can have one more round of meetings. City will be always open for that.
I just have to come back with a bigger bag so I can buy more saris.
Yes.
You can always do one thing, that you can always visit the places where we are working.
Sure.
Even we get impact analysis done.
Yes.
And that is great. We get very good impact out of the activities we are doing from third party agency. We are getting impact analysis also.
And people like Axion, Sidvi, IFC, CDC, all have been our partners. So we have global, real, reputed partners. Yeah.
Rajit, you want to say a couple of words?
Sure. Thank you so much for this opportunity. That's my gratitude to all. And I was just looking at somebody, I think Lenin, who said what cannot happen in decades can happen in a week's time. That's what I look at in the last 3 days, which is happening with Ideal Village Summit, and a lot of learnings. Probably one I can take away, go back after that is, I work on one project called For Her, Educating Women in India. My partner is from Canada, called the Women Collectives. There we have a financial advisory entrepreneurship for women. Today we have 100,000 financial advisors in the country. At AMFI, our industry, we are embarking on increasing to 5 lakhs. In that 5 lakhs, I am just looking at least 100,000 women advisors are coming in, probably reaching out to them. We already done some pilots, probably taking the clue from what you said. Why should not we make the women advisors? Because that makes a lot of sense. One in terms, they can work from home, they can work at comfort, and women are better advisors than the men in many cases to school. And probably I look forward on that. And thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Raj, you want to make a closing comment?
Absolutely. I'm honored to be a part of Wheels for the last 9+ years, and this event has really opened up the vision of what India is going through, the changes, and we are glad that I'm part of this change, and I want to make sure that I continue this journey. Just one thing I would like to add, since 2008, I've opened up 20,000 jobs in India, bringing 75 companies. I want this to be 7,500 companies in the next 10 years. That's it.
Any closing comments?
No, I think seeing these 2 examples again illustrates the value Wheel can bring in terms of bringing these different success stories into one composite ecosystem. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank all our participants here today. Thanks for all the questions. As I said, I think yesterday, this is not the end of the conference. This is the beginning of a movement. So I hope that you will all use every communication means you have to stay in touch with the gentlemen here and the ladies. And unless we communicate and collaborate, we cannot succeed. So everyone is part of this. We are inviting you to join the Wheels Ideal Village family, and we will collaborate. We look forward to working with BHU more closely. In fact, BHU will be one of our centers for this collaboration platform, and we've talked about doing that. Based here, we already did the WIN Foundation in the IIT Gandhinagar, and that has not only spawned projects, it has spawned patents and activities. So hopefully we can do the same. So in appreciation, we have a small token of our appreciation for you. So if you don't mind carrying something back with you, so request them to please bring it forward.
Thank you so much for the panel for sharing their valuable insights. I would like to request Mindu Prakash Mathur, Sir, Dean and Head of Institute of Management Studies, to felicitate our guest. She was with book.
He said chair and not the oldest person.
You are very young.
Probably the wisest.
Now I would like to request Sir to present Now I would like to request sir to present the same to Govind Singh sir. Now I will request sir. Please present the same to Ratan Agarwal sir, Vice President of Foundation.
Thank you, Chandra.
From the other side. I'll be correct. सर से नंबर लूँगा आपका
On the basis of the very rich experience which was available in this room on the last 2 days also. Today we have some people who are left over, so I'm going to request them to make the presentations in about 7 to 8 minutes each, and then we will move to summarizing and closing. And in the meantime, before we do summarizing and closing, we have got a draft document on the Banaras Declaration. I was asked to put together a document for Banaras Declaration. So that is also being worked on the side. I've been at it for the last 3-4 hours and require another half an hour or 1 hour before we announce it at the valedictory session. Now the document will be very instrumental for creating new capacities. BHU is one of the most revered universities in the country and in the world. Now that declaration proposes the setting up of the Global Institute of Rural Development and Leadership at the BHU campus in the Institute of Management Studies, initially under the mentorship of the IMS. So for the students of BHU, for the city, for the region, for the state, it is going to be a very revolutionary step forward. Setting up a Global Institute for Rural Development and Leadership. So we will try. Thank you, sir. Great to hear that. So I have requested, some of the volunteers to be on standby, because as soon as that is approved and cleared and approved, we will make out a few hundred copies and distribute it to all the students, and then launch the declaration called the Varanasi Declaration 2022 in the valedictory session. So that will be the outcome of one of the main outcomes of the conference. So now I am going to thank the two girls who are helping us, two students,
Aishwarya and Ayushi, you have to take the notes for today also. And these slips which have been given, you have to put one overarching point for the call to action.
1 or 2 or 3, whatever.
Okay, 1 or 2 or 3, but as a net outcome of all your work in the field, learning, and the path forward. So that being said, I'm going to request Vibha to start the session today because she had not been able to make the presentation on the last session, and we had been carrying on and on and on, and we were getting very late, and there has been so much interest that nobody wants to leave the session once it starts. So Vibha, over to you.
So everybody please put your stickies on those 4 posters there, and they can help you put it or whatever, and that way we can collect.
So we have 5 speakers for the session today.
When you're ready, or you can stick.
There is Varun Vidyarthi online, there is Devnath Bhai, there is Kavita Kapur, there is Ajay Kumar, and there is Chandra Pran.
मैं अपना प्रेजेंटेशन दूंगी पर बहुत फास्ट फॉरवर्ड जाएगा ये क्योंकि
2 मिनट आपको सेल्फ इंट्रोडक्शन देना होगा.
मैं
Up significantly on the national scene to rural empowerment, but just very brief about Magan Sangrahalaya and on to the health.
तो मैं मगन संग्रहालय और सेंटर ऑफ साइंस और विलेजेस दोनों की हेड हूँ और ये गांधी जी ने शुरू की संस्था है. मैं आपको जो दिखाने वाली हूँ अपने इसमें एक चीज़ जो ज़्यादातर भूल जाते हैं हम लोग गांव के कामों में कि गांव का मतलब व्यक्ति और पशु पक्षी और जानवर, इसके बगैर आप गांव नहीं देख सकते. हम ज़्यादातर विलेज डेवलपमेंट मतलब ह्यूमन रिसोर्सेज और वगैरह, पर ये कि गांव बिना पशु पक्षी के और जानवरों के भी है तभी वो गांव है. तो मैं अपनी स्लाइड्स को फास्ट फॉरवर्ड करती हूँ. दिस बेसिकली gathering of all the technologies that we have developed. उसके पीछे एक मिशन है, वो मैं बताने की कोशिश करूँगी. तो हम लोगों ने काम जब शुरू किया उसमें एक मेजर काम था निवास का, घर बनाने का, और मैं डेडिकेट करती हूँ उन हनी बीज को जो नेचर से कम लेती हैं और ज़्यादा देती हैं. जब तक हम ये नहीं करते तब तक हम इस पृथ्वी को नहीं बचा सकते. तो
very important point.
हाँ जी, तो ये हम लोगों ने माना कि सीमेंट के मकान एक तरह से बहुत घातक हैं इस पर्यावरण के लिए, तो हम मिट्टी के मकान बनाते हैं, बहुत सारे मकान बनाते हैं, और उसका खास हमने काम किया कि मकानों की जो मालकियत है वो महिलाओं को मिले. इसका नीति बंद करके हम लोगों ने ये that the property goes to the women of the family, ये हम लोगों ने एक पॉलिसी डिसीजन लिया. हमने बहुत सारे घर बनाए. ये सारे कच्ची मिट्टी के पक्के मकान हैं जिसका 70% पैसा कुम्हारों और लोगों को जाता है और लेबर को जाता है. इसमें केवल 30% लोहा और सीमेंट लगता है, बाकी मिट्टी का बनता है. तो इसका ये ज़रूरी था कि हमारे जितने भी कारीगर हैं उनको किसी न किसी तरह में हमें मार्जिनलाइज न करते हुए हमें उन्हें मेन स्ट्रीम में लाना होगा. इसलिए ये मिट्टी के मकान हम बनाते हैं और आप देखेंगे कि ये बिल्कुल बहुत खूबसूरत अच्छे पक्के मकान हैं. दूसरा है कि जैसे मैंने कहा कि गांव पशु पक्षी कीड़े मकोड़े सब मिलकर बनता है, तो ये मानना है कि जो हनी है, जो मधुमक्खियाँ हैं, उनको हमें यदि नहीं बचाएंगे तो हम खुद ही 10 साल में ख़त्म हो जाएंगे. और ज़्यादातर मक्खियों को निकालने का ये तरीका होता है. तो हमें नॉन वायलेंट सिस्टम्स जितने हम निकालेंगे अपने काम के तरीकों में, प्रोडक्शन में, प्रोसेसेस में, उतना ही हम सचमुच गाँव के लिए और प्रकृति के लिए काम कर रहे हैं. तो एक तरीका है, ये लंबा जब आप आएंगे वर्धा तो बताएंगे कि ज़्यादातर इस तरीके से निकाला जाता है मधुमक्खियों को.
और हमने इस तरह का निकाला है जिसमें एक भी मधुमक्खियाँ नहीं मरती और बहुत अच्छा शहद मिलता है। इससे वहाँ के कारीगरों को कम से कम 20 से 40 गुना 100 गुना तक ज़्यादा पैसा मिलता है। ये आप देख रहे हैं कि जहाँ पे मधुमक्खियाँ भाग रही हैं वहाँ पे हमारे यहाँ पे मधुमक्खियाँ वापस आने लगी। वैसे ही गोंद निकालने का तरीका आप देखेंगे आदिवासियों में पेड़ तोड़ के या काट के बनाया जाता है, तो उसका हमने एक नया तरीका निकाला जिससे पेड़ ना काटना पड़े। तो ये सब नॉन वायलेंट तरीके हैं। वैसे ही हमने तय किया कि सबसे ज़्यादा जो गांव में रहता है वो वीड्स है, और वीड्स गरीब के हैं, और गरीब का जो भी सामान है यदि आपने उसको वैल्यू ऐड किया तो वहाँ को कोई धक्का नहीं लगता है उसके इकॉनमी को, और उनके हाथ से चीज़ें छीनी नहीं जाती। तो ये आप देखेंगे कि हमारे रोज़ेला नाम का एक अंबाड़ी होता है, उससे हमने कई प्रोडक्ट्स बनाए। फिर कैशिया टोरा सिर्फ बारिश के बाद बहुत उगता है, उससे भी बहुत सारी चीज़ें बनाई। और वैसे कल जो बात कर रहे थे कि लैंटना बड़ी मात्रा में सारे जंगलों को खराब कर रहा है, और फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट कोशिश करेगी इसे किसी तरह हटाया जाए। यहाँ फर्नीचर जो देख रहे हैं, फर्नीचर है, हेजेस हैं, कर्टन्स हैं, हेजेस हैं, ये सब हमने बनाए हैं उससे। और वहाँ पे एक और बेकार लकड़ी होती है, दूध कूड़ा कहते हैं, उससे भी हमने कई प्रोडक्ट्स बनाए। फिर आइकोमी आप जो बेशरम कह रहे थे, उससे बहुत अच्छी कीटनाशक दवाई बनती है। और हमने माना है कि बकरी सबसे बड़ी वैज्ञानिक है, जो चीज़ बकरी नहीं खाती वो पेस्टिसाइड है। तो इस तरह की चीज़ें हम लोगों ने ईजाद की है। झाड़ू बनाने वाली तो बेकार जाता है, तो उसके लिए भी कुछ मशीनें बनाई ताकि उसके हाथ न कटे या चुभे नहीं और वगैरह। वैसे ही केला जो फेंक दिया जाता है उसके बोर्ड्स, उससे तने से बोर्ड्स बनाने का काम किया है। और अभी जो मॉन्सेंटो कंपनी और दूसरी कंपनी, बड़ी बड़ी मल्टीनेशनल कंपनीज आके हमारे बीजों पर अधिकार ले रही हैं और तो वो मर जाएंगे। तो हमारे देशी बीज पूरे ख़त्म हो रहे हैं, विदेशी लोग पूरे अपने बीजों पर हमारा कब्जा कर रहे हैं और उनके ही बीज हम लगा रहे हैं। तो हमने सबसे पहले बीटी कॉटन जो हमारे क्षेत्र में सबसे ज़्यादा पैदा होता है उसके विरोध में काम किया और देशी बीज बोए, और उसी से हमने कपड़ा से कपास बना के जो आपको शॉल्स दी जा रही हैं वो सब ऑर्गेनिक कपड़े और इंडिगो कलर से बनाए। और पत्ता इस्तेमाल करके हम लोग प्रिंटिंग करते हैं, और ये अलग अलग तरह के, तो उससे ये बहुत बड़ा काम हुआ है कि देशी कपास का बीज वापस आया और किसानों ने ऑर्गेनिक कल्टीवेशन शुरू किया। इससे इन कंपनियों के ऊपर तो असर पड़ेगा, पर हमारी पृथ्वी पर बहुत अच्छा असर पड़ेगा। वाटरशेड डेवलपमेंट का काम हमने उन 8 गाँव में किया जो बेपानी गाँव थे। इसमें ये स्थिति थी जब हमने गाँव लिया, और उसके बाद अभी ये स्थिति है। हमने लाखों पेड़ लगाए, पानी रोका, और पानी को भागते पानी को रोकने से और रुके हुए पानी को बैठने से की तैयारी की। और उससे आप देखेंगे कितना वहाँ का पूरा परिसर बदला, माइग्रेशन रुक गया, शराबबंदी हुई, और वहीं पर हमने फार्म पॉन्ड्स बनाए और अच्छे जो बड़े तालाब थे उनको वहाँ के देवी देवताओं के नाम दिए ताकि लोग उसे साफ रखें। ये माता तालाब, और इस पूरे प्रोसेस से हमने करीब 6-7 हज़ार एकड़ ज़मीन इरिगेट की और 5,000 ज़मीन हमने रिक्लेम की है। फिर वैसे ही ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग का मुझे बताने की ज़रूरत थी, पर इसका बहुत बड़ा मूवमेंट चला है। हमने बहुत सारे लोगों को, भले वो करें ना करें, हमने कई सभाएं, कई बैठकें, कई जिम्मेदारियां बांट के देशी बीज को रोकने की, अच्छे नई तकनीकों को लाने की, नए टूल्स बनाने की, उनको थोड़ा मैकेनाइजेशन करने की, सांप को बचाने की, पक्षियों को बचाने की, और खूब अच्छा क्रॉपिंग हो रहा है, बम्पर क्रॉप्स हो रहे हैं इन सब में। और कुछ समय ज़रूर लगा। फिर वैसे ही जो भी सामान गांव में बचता था उसको वहीं प्रोड्यूस को प्रोसेस करने का काम शुरू किया, फिर हल्दी हो या दूसरा सामान हो, उनकी टूल्स का हो, और वहाँ पे हम लोगों ने रेस्टोरेंट्स बनाए वगैरह सब। फिर महिलाओं को हम ये समझ जाएं कि 2 चीज़ें बताना चाहती हूँ कि द डिग्री ऑफ डिपेंडेंस इज इक्वल्स टू डिग्री ऑफ एक्सप्लॉयटेशन। तो हम कोशिश ये करें कि एक्सप्लॉयटेशन कम करने के लिए उनका डिग्री ऑफ डिपेंडेंस कम करें। और वैसे आप देखेंगे कि जब औरतों के हाथ में पैसा होगा तो घर बचेगा। तो इसीलिए बहुत ज़रूरी था कि औरतों को हम क्रेडिट लिंक करें, SHGs बनाए। तो हम लोगों ने करीब 1105 SHGs बनाए। आप देखिए संख्या, गांव के किसी भी काम में यदि संख्या बढ़ती है तो ऑटोमेटिकली एटीट्यूडनल चेंजेस आने लगते हैं। तो सर्कमस्टांशियल चेंजेस और एटीट्यूडनल चेंजेस जब तक दोनों साथ नहीं चलते तब तक आप कोई भी इम्प्रूवमेंट नहीं ला सकते। तो वहाँ पे फिर हमने इन्हीं औरतों को लेकर एंटरप्राइजेस शुरू किया। देखें बहुत अलग अलग तरह के एंटरप्राइजेस, और ये सारी औरतें जो बिल्कुल ही खेत की किसान थी, वो अब और उसके साथ हमने एक और काम किया कि जैसे मैंने कहा कि सर्कमस्टेंशियल चेंज के साथ एटीट्यूडनल चेंज यदि नहीं लाते हैं तो आपका काम इसलिए अधूरा रह जाता है क्योंकि आपके विचार अलग और लोगों के विचार अलग रहता है। तो जब हमें पता चला कि तेल एक ऐसी चीज़ है जो विदेशी हाथों में जा रही है, तो स्वदेशी लेने के लिए हमने फिर धानियाँ शुरू की और बहुत बड़ा तेल स्वराज अभियान शुरू किया। अभी भी अभियान चल रहा है, गांव-गांव में हम लोगों को बता रहे हैं कि देशी तेल खाओ, विदेशी तेल ना खाओ। और उसी तरह हम लोगों ने कई लोगों को जैसे इंश्योरेंस स्कीम में 4,000 और न्यूट्रिशन कार्ड में हम सब लोग कर रहे हैं, करीब 1 लाख से ज़्यादा टॉयलेट्स हमने बनाए। वैसे पोर्टेबल पानी और उसके फिल्टर, ये सब कोविड के समय बहुत सारा काम।
बहुत बढ़िया, इतने कम टाइम में इतना बड़ा
explain in a crisp manner in such a short time. We have been there, we spent more than 1 full day there, and that was not enough to, and you know, 1 more day was required, the very minimum, but to be able to explain the overall sense of it. Thank you very much. Now we have Chandra, Shekar, Pran sir from Teesri Sarkar. Please introduce yourself first, and then we will move on to the presentation.
सबको नमस्कार, धन्यवाद प्रदीप जी। मेरा नाम चंद्र शेखर प्राण। मैं इस समय जो काम कर रहा हूँ तीसरी सरकार अभियान के नाम से। तीसरी सरकार का मतलब हुआ कि पहली सरकार यूनियन गवर्नमेंट, दूसरी सरकार स्टेट गवर्नमेंट और तीसरी सरकार जो है संविधान में उसको सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट कहा गया। लोकल गवर्नमेंट भी हमारे देश के संविधान में नहीं कहा है, लोकल शब्द ही नहीं है पूरे संविधान में, वो सिर्फ सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट। सेल्फ मीन्स जहाँ लोग खुद सरकार होते हैं, लोग ही सरकार है, तो सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट है तीसरी सरकार, वो ग्राम जिसको हम पंचायत और नगर पालिका कहते हैं। इसको लेकर 3 तरह के काम, 3 उद्देश्य हैं हम लोगों के, फोकस एरिया है।
रान साहब, एक मैं सजेस्ट करना चाहूँगा, जब हम वर्धा में थे लोग वहाँ पर यूज़ कर रहे थे जो सेंटर में हमारी सरकार
और यहाँ हम सरकार, वही मैं कह रहा हूँ, सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट, हम खुद सरकार है ना, हमें सरकार है। इसको समय बहुत कम है, इसलिए कैसे हम सरकार हैं ये तार्किक है, इमोशनल नहीं है कि वो इमोशनल कह रहे हैं कि हम सरकार है, बहुत तार्किक है और संवैधानिक है। संवैधानिक जो भी है वो तार्किक है, व्यवस्था ही उस तरह की है, पंचायत की व्यवस्था है। 3 चीज़ों को फोकस कर रहे हैं हम लोग। एक तो है कि पंचायत सरकार है, किस रूप में सरकार है, उसकी संरचना क्या है, ये सारी समझ जो है वो लोगों तक ले जाना। अभी मेरे ख्याल से वो है नहीं, जो यहाँ के डायरेक्टर हैं कृषि केंद्र के, वो कह रहे थे मुझे भी नहीं पता था ये सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट का ये मतलब होता है या ऐसा है। तो सामान्यतया लोगों की जानकारी में नहीं है, पढ़े लिखे लोगों की जानकारी में भी नहीं है। तो एक तो इसको बताना और इसकी एक सामाजिक स्वीकृति बने और सरकार की तरफ से भी उसको एक तरह से है, संविधान की मोहर को स्वीकार करें, ये काम है। दूसरा है कि अगर वो सरकार है तो सरकार व्यक्ति नहीं होता, लोकतंत्र में सरकार व्यक्ति नहीं होता, सरकार संस्थाएं होती हैं, सभी स्तर पर संस्थाएं हैं जो सरकार का काम करती हैं। पंचायतें सामान्यतः 1 मैन शो बन करके रह गई हैं, मतलब जो उसका सरपंच है या प्रधान है वही पंचायत है, बाकी लोग सब गायब हैं। तो दूसरा जो प्रयास है कि उसका संस्थागत विकास कैसे हो, अगर वो एक इंस्टीट्यूशन कैसे बन जाए, संवैधानिक संस्था कैसे बने, उसके लिए हम लोग कोशिश करते हैं। तीसरी चीज कि अगर वो सरकार है तो उसका गवर्नेंस होगा, उसका अपनी व्यवस्था होगी, अपना शासन होगा। संविधान किस तरह के गवर्नेंस की बात करता है, राज्य के अधिनियमों में उसे कैसे लागू किया गया है, इस पर समझ विकसित करके फिर लोगों तक उसको ले जाना और उसके गवर्नेंस के पार्ट को ज़्यादा इफेक्टिव बनाना। तो ये 3 उद्देश्य को लेकर ही तीसरी सरकार अभियान काम कर, और माना ये जाता है, हम लोग ये मानते हैं कि ये हो जाएगा तो डेवलपमेंट के जो भी कोशिशें होंगी गांव में जैसा भी होगा वो ज़्यादा आसान हो जाएगा, उसको बहुत आसानी के साथ किया जा सकता है। तीसरी सरकार अभियान इस समय लगभग 15 राज्यों में छुटपुट रूप से काम कर रही है, कहीं बहुत ज़्यादा है, उत्तर प्रदेश जैसे कई जगह उस रूप में काम कर रहे हैं। अभी 8 साल हुआ है इस काम को करते। एक तो ये मेरा परिचय है। आज का जो विषय है, मैं उसको शायद उस विषय को टच करना चाहिए, विषय था कि सशक्तिकरण और सामाजिक समायोजन। ठीक है, अंग्रेजी तो आप सब लोग पढ़े हैं, मैं हिंदी में बोल रहा हूँ उसको। वास्तव में जब सशक्तिकरण कहते हैं तो उसका सही मायने क्या होता है? ठीक है, सशक्तिकरण का मतलब होता है, अगर एक शब्दों में कहा जाए तो निर्णय लेने का अधिकार। जिसके पास निर्णय लेने का अधिकार है वही सबसे बड़ी शक्ति होती है। ठीक है, लेकिन इस तक पहुंचने के एक तरह से तीन होते हैं। निर्णय लेने के अधिकार के पहले 3 चीजें हैं जो चाहिए। एक तो उसके अंदर क्षमता और संवर्धन चाहिए, क्षमता चाहिए। क्षमता 2 अर्थों में होगी, एक शिक्षा या समझ के स्तर पर होगी और दूसरी कौशल के स्तर पर होगी, कुशलता के स्तर पर। तो किसी व्यक्ति को अगर सशक्त बनाना है तो उसे शिक्षित करना पड़ेगा और उसे कुशल, उसको स्किल उसकी डेवलप करनी पड़ेगी, अर्थात कौशल उसके अंदर पैदा करना। ये उसकी क्षमता का विषय है। दूसरा होता है अवसर। सिर्फ क्षमता से काम नहीं चलता, निर्णय के लिए उसे अवसर मिले। अगर अवसर नहीं मिला तो बहुत सारी चीजें उसके पास है, उसका कोई मतलब। अवसर जो होता है वो व्यक्तिगत होता है और सामूहिक भी हो सकता है। हम व्यक्तिगत स्तर पर और सामूहिक स्तर पर उसको ये अवसर हम उपलब्ध। और तीसरा है अधिकार, इस बात का राइट में। 3 चीजें, क्षमता हो, अवसर हो और अधिकार, तब जाकर के वो निर्णय की प्रक्रिया का भागीदार बन सकता है। ये निर्णय जो होता है, निर्णय से पहले और बाद में होता है। निर्णय बीच की चीज है। निर्णय का आगा भी होता है और पीछा भी होता है। निर्णय का आगा है, बिना सोचे तो आप निर्णय नहीं ले सकते। अर्थात अगर निर्णय का अधिकार है तो उसको सोचने का अधिकार भी मिलेगा, तभी तो वो निर्णय ले सकेगा। हम ये कहते हैं सोचेंगे हम, निर्णय आप लोगे, ये तो संभव ही नहीं। तो निर्णय का अधिकार से पहले सोचने का भी उसको अधिकार और अवसर मिलना चाहिए। ठीक इसी तरह निर्णय लेने से काम चीजें पूरी नहीं होगी, करने का भी अधिकार होना चाहिए और करने का अवसर होना चाहिए। तो ये जब हम सशक्तिकरण कहते हैं तो इस पूरे सशक्तिकरण के पीछे का जो भाव है या उसके जो विश्लेषण है वो इस तरह, एक सरल शब्दों में कि सशक्तिकरण है, मतलब जब उसको एक तार्किक तरीके से समझाने की कोशिश करें। दूसरा जो सबसे महत्वपूर्ण है वो है इसके लिए जो प्रयास किया जाएगा, जहां हम सामाजिक समायोजन पर आते हैं, वहां पर 2 तरह से उस प्रयास को किया जा सकता है। एक प्रयास है कि उसको सामाजिक समायोजन सहजता से हो जाए, बिल्कुल पूरी प्रक्रिया इस तरह बने कि हम लोगों की एक प्रक्रिया ऐसी करी, सहजता से लोग शामिल हो। और एक है कि प्रायोजित तरीके से शामिल किया जाएगा, अर्थात जो लोग वंचित हैं, जिन्हें समाज के इस पूरी प्रक्रिया से अलग थलग पड़ गए हैं, उनको हम समाज के इन सारी प्रक्रियाओं का हिस्सा बना सकें। और मुख्य रूप से जब सशक्तिकरण पहले कहा जा रहा है तो अर्थात पूरी प्रक्रिया में, सोचने में, निर्णय लेने में और करने में वो भागीदार बन सके, यही सच्ची सहभागिता है, यही वास्तविक पार्टिसिपेशन है। पार्टिसिपेशन 3 लेवल पर होता है, डिस्कशन, डिसीजन और एक्शन। ये तीनों लेवल पर जब होता है तो वो पार्टिसिपेशन होता है। तो उसको हम पार्टिसिपेशन में सहज भाव से शामिल करें। कभी होता था सहजता से, बीच में वो अलग थलग पड़ा है, वंचित हुआ है, तो हमें प्रायोजित तरीके से करना पड़ता। जब हम कहते हैं प्रायोजित तरीके से, तो ये जो आरक्षण है या इस तरह की जो कोशिशें हैं जो उनके लिए विशेष प्रयास किए जाते हैं, आरक्षण देकर एक प्रयास किया जाता है कि उनको समाज की प्रक्रिया की मुख्य धारा में शामिल किया जाए। तो प्रायोजित तरीके से भी और सहज तरीके से सिस्टम को भी इस तरह डेवलप करें कि दोनों तरीकों से उनका समाज में ठीक से हो सके। एक दूसरा जो सबसे एक चीज समझने की आवश्यकता है, क्योंकि इसलिए मैं कह रहा हूं कि हम आइडियल विलेज डेवलपमेंट के प्लान को लेकर ये सब कर रहे हैं, तो इसलिए कुछ चीजें जो हमारे समाज की हैं, इस देश की है, जो हम कहते हैं बहुत जरूरी है, उसको समझने की आवश्यकता है। आपने देखा होगा एक बालू का ढेर देखा होगा और एक मिट्टी का, हम ढेर नहीं, मिट्टी के भी ढेर होते हैं, दोनों में पानी डालिए, बालू में पानी डालिए, बालू इकट्ठे कर लीजिए जगह और मिट्टी एक जगह इकट्ठे करिए, दोनों में पानी डालिए। बालू में आप पानी डालिए लेकिन बालू का एक कण दूसरे कण के साथ समायोजित नहीं होता, वो जुड़ता नहीं है। लेकिन मिट्टी में क्या होता है, मिट्टी में अगर एक बड़े बैलेंस के साथ आप पानी डालना शुरू करें तो मिट्टी धीरे धीरे आपस में जुड़, उसके हर कण आपस में जुड़ने लगते हैं, जुड़ते जुड़ते एक लोंदा बन जाता है मुलायम। उस लोंदे को कोई भी आकार दे सकते हैं, कोई भी आकार दे सकते हैं, उससे आप घड़ा बना सकते हो, मूर्ति बना सकते हो। इसलिए कहा गया है कि इंडियन सोसाइटी जो थी वो कम्युनिटी बेस्ड सोसाइटी, और उसमें हर चेहरे बनते हैं। परिवार एक चेहरा है, परिवार इंडियन सोसाइटी का, दूसरा है पड़ोसी, तीसरा है परिवार और पड़ोस मिलकर के गांव, गांव बनता है, बहुत सारे समुदाय बने, कम्युनिटी बने। तो ये जो विशेषता है भारतीय समाज की, इसलिए इसको सेंद्रिक समाज कहा गया है। ऐसा समाज जो मिट्टी बालू का ढेर नहीं है कि जिसका कोई आकार नहीं हो सकता, ये ऐसा समाज जहाँ व्यक्ति एकदम अलग अलग हो जाएगा, उसका कोई रूप नहीं बनेगा व्यक्तियों को मिला करके। लेकिन भारतीय समाज जो है वो सेंद्रिक समाज है और उसके बहुत सारे रूप गढ़े जा सकते हैं। ठीक है, तो ये जो भारतीय समाज की विशेषता थी, ये जो क्वालिटी थी, कम्युनिटी बेस्ड सोसाइटी, इसको अंग्रेजी में कहा है कम्युनिटी बेस्ड सोसाइटी, तो ये भारतीय समाज। और इस कम्युनिटी बेस्ड सोसाइटी का जो बेस था वो रिलेशनशिप थी, संबंध था, परिवार संबंधों पर चलता है, पड़ोसीपन संबंधों पर चलता है, पूरा गांव समाज जिसको कहते हैं वो रिश्तों पर चला करता है। अब जो अंतिम बात मैं कहना चाहता हूँ, इस सारी पृष्ठभूमि से जो सशक्तिकरण और ये है, जो मतलब व्यक्तिगत स्तर पर भी सशक्तिकरण और सामाजिक स्तर पर भी सशक्तिकरण, निर्णय का अधिकार सभी स्तरों पर। बस मैं अंत में अपनी बात कहकर खत्म करूंगा कि इस पूरे मूवमेंट को अगर आगे ले जाना है, जो हम एक आइडियल विलेज की बात कर रहे हैं, तो हमें 3 चरणों से गुजरना, 3 उसके प्रोसेस होंगे। क्योंकि गांव आज है, हम बहुत सरल शब्दों में कहते हैं, गांव क्या है? गांव लोग और भूगोल, एक भूगोल का क्षेत्र है और कुछ लोग हैं, वही गांव है। गांव लोग और भूगोल है। लेकिन लोग जो होते हैं वो व्यक्तियों से, व्यक्ति जब समूह में आता है तो लोग कहे जाते हैं ना, जैसे मेले में जो भीड़ होती है उसको लोग कह देते हैं। ठीक है, कहते हैं कि इतने लोग इकट्ठे हुए थे, किसी पार्टी के किसी सम्मेलन में लोग आ गए या कहीं इतने लोग वहां इकट्ठे हुए, तो लोग एक समूह है। लेकिन वही लोग जब रिश्तों में बनते हैं तो कम्युनिटी बन जाते हैं, समुदाय बन जाते हैं, जहाँ वयम का भाव हो जाता है, रिश्ते हो जाते हैं, एक जिम्मेदारियों का बंटवारा हो जाता है और एक दूसरे पर जो पूरी तरह से वो परास्परावलंबन बन जाता है, वयम का भाव। तो ये कम्युनिटी हो जाती है और यही कम्युनिटी बाद में समाज का, जब वो सहज व्यवहार में आ जाती है तो सोसाइटी बन जाती है, समाज बन जाता है। बहुत सरल तरीके से मतलब किताबों में और उसमें नहीं, जो जीवन में सरलता से दिखाई पड़ता है। तो एक तरफ गांव लोग थे और भूगोल था, दूसरी तरफ इनको मिलाकर गांव समाज बन रहा था। वही गांव समाज जब अपनी समस्याओं को लेकर विचार विमर्श के लिए, संवाद करने के लिए बैठता था या अपने समस्याओं को सुलझाने के लिए, विवादों को सुलझाने के लिए, तो उसी को पंचायत कहा जाता है। याद है ना, अभी भी गांव में 10 लोग बैठ जाए तो कहा जाता है क्या पंचायत कर रहे हैं। तो पंचायत क्या थी? वो उस गांव समाज की अपनी बैठकी थी जो अपनी समस्याओं के लिए या अपने संवाद के लिए बैठा करती थी। ठीक है, आज की तारीख में क्या है ये तो पीछे की कहानी मैंने बताई, आज हम कहाँ स्टैंड करते हैं, इसीलिए देखना पड़ेगा। आज का विश्लेषण कर लेंगे तो आगे का हमारा रास्ता क्या होगा वो तय करना आसान होगा। आज की तारीख में हम कहाँ हैं? गांव है, भूगोल भी, लोग भी हैं और भूगोल भी है, हमारे पास ये दोनों चीजें। लेकिन वो जो कम्युनिटी थी, वो जो समुदाय था, वो जो समाज था, वो बिखर गया है, टूट रहा है, बहुत तेजी से रिलेशनशिप खत्म हुआ। और जब समाज नहीं है तो कोई संवाद नहीं है, और संवाद नहीं है तो उस तरह की बैठकी भी नहीं है, तो वो एक तो समाज खत्म हो गया। लेकिन दूसरी तरफ भारत के संविधान में उस पूरी परंपरा को, पंचायत को और ग्राम सभा को, दोनों को संवैधानिक दर्जा दिया। आज संविधान ने ग्राम पंचायत को सरकार के रूप में प्रतिष्ठित किया है, सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट के रूप में, और ग्राम सभा को उसकी विधायिका के रूप में। निर्णय लेने का अधिकार ग्राम सभा के पास है, जहाँ सारे मतदाता जुड़ते हैं, गांव समाज है। तो गांव समाज को संविधान ने संवैधानिक मान्यता दी ग्राम सभा के रूप में, और ग्राम पंचायत को एक एग्जीक्यूटिव बॉडी के रूप में, सरकार के रूप में, मंत्रिमंडल के रूप में उसको मान्यता दी। लेकिन बीच का समाज गायब है, इसलिए वो दोनों आज बिल्कुल निष्प्रभावी नजर आते हैं। इसलिए हमें सबसे पहला काम करना होगा गांव समाज के पुनर्जागरण का काम। अगर आप आइडियल विलेज बनाना चाहते हैं, क्योंकि आपके ड्राफ्ट में मैं देख रहा था कि उसको एक ड्राफ्ट है, उसे भरना है। जब तक हम गांव समाज के पुनर्जागरण का प्रयास नहीं करेंगे, अर्थात उसको फिर से कम्युनिटी बेस्ड सोसाइटी बनाने के लिए उसकी सामुदायिकता क्या थी? आपस का भाईचारा था, एक दूसरे को बर्दाश्त करने की क्षमता थी। परिवार तो तभी चलता है ना जब पति पत्नी एक दूसरे को, बाप बेटे, भाई बहन सब एक दूसरे को मतलब रिस्पेक्ट करते हैं, और कहीं कुछ हो जाता है तो उसको सहते हैं ना, उसको स्वीकार करते हैं। तो ये जो समुदाय का सबसे बड़ा है, आज समाज में यही टूटा है। तो इसको कैसे हम डेवलप कर सकेंगे? इसके बिना कोई सोसाइटी बन नहीं सकती, कोई समाज बन नहीं सकता। तो संक्षेप में कि पहला काम हमें ये करना। समाज जाग जाएगा, पुनर्जागरण हो जाएगा उसका, तो फिर हमें गांव की एक व्यवस्था बनानी। तो हम उसे कहते हैं गांव व्यवस्था की पुनर्रचना करनी। अब ये पुनर्रचना क्या होगी? क्योंकि हमारे यहाँ पूरा व्यवस्था एक तो समाज की थी और एक राज्य की थी। समाज की व्यवस्था को हम सांस्कृतिक पक्ष कहते हैं, क्योंकि समाज से संस्कृति बनती है, राज्य से संविधान बनता है। हमारी संस्कृति जो जीवन पद्धतियां विकसित करती है उसी को हम परंपरा कहते हैं। जब वो एकदम से रूढ़ हो जाती है तो उसको रूढ़ ही बोलते हैं। तो हम सिर्फ संस्कृति और परंपरा की बात करते हैं। इसके लिए जो हमारा सांस्कृतिक परिवेश है, उसके क्या है सांस्कृतिक परिवेश में? परिवार और पड़ोस। सबसे दो चीजें महत्वपूर्ण है। परिवार और पड़ोस को फिर से उसकी व्यवस्था को ठीक करना पड़ेगा, पड़ोसीपन को और फैमिली कल आप देखिए बहुत सारे हैं रिसर्च जो ब्रिटेन में या दुनिया के दूसरे देशों में यही परिवार का ही संकट सबसे बड़ा कारण हो गया है। तो यहाँ पर अभी परिवार बचे हैं, उन बचे हुए जितना बचा है उसको और सुधार ठीक करने की आवश्यकता है। तो परिवार और पड़ोस को ये सांस्कृतिक प्रयास होगा। और दूसरा जो संवैधानिक प्रयास होगा, संवैधानिक प्रयास ये होगा कि इस देश में लोकतंत्र है, मिला है, इसलिए हमें लोकतंत्र के उस स्वरूप को यहाँ पर खड़ा करना होगा गाँव में, जिसको पार्टिसिपेटरी डेमोक्रेसी कहा गया था, जहाँ लोग खुद सहभागी बनते हैं पूरी लोकतांत्रिक प्रक्रिया में। लोकतांत्रिक प्रक्रिया में दो सहभागिता होती है, एक सरकार बनाने की और दूसरा सरकार चलाने की। तो ग्राम पंचायत के स्तर पर ये दोनों चीजें आगे पार्टिसिपेटरी डेमोक्रेसी के रूप में पंचायत हमारे पास, ग्राम सभा पार्टिसिपेटरी। इसलिए हमें पंचायती राज व्यवस्था को ठीक से पार्टिसिपेटरी डेमोक्रेसी के रूप में और रिप्रेजेंटेटिव डेमोक्रेसी, दोनों विकल्प, दोनों पक्ष हैं। ग्राम सभा पार्टिसिपेटरी डेमोक्रेसी है, ग्राम पंचायत रिप्रेजेंटेटिव डेमोक्रेसी। लेकिन ऐसी रिप्रेजेंटेटिव डेमोक्रेसी जिसको किसी भी समय पकड़ा जा सकता है, जिसको राइट टू रिकॉल मिला हुआ है, अगर वो ठीक काम नहीं करता तो उसको हम वापस करा सकते हैं, ऐसा रिप्रेजेंटेटिव। तो दूसरा कि संवैधानिक दृष्टि से हमें इन चीजों को आगे बढ़ाना। अगर ये हो गया, जागरण हो गया, व्यवस्था बन गई, नई व्यवस्था की पुनर्रचना हो गई, तो अंतिम होगा गांव का पुनर्निर्माण। फिर जो सारे जो कार्यक्रम है, लेकिन इन कार्यक्रमों में जो दो तीन चीजें सबसे महत्वपूर्ण है, मैं सिर्फ उसकी तरफ एक तो इसमें देखना होगा जो बार बार बात आ रही है, स्थानीयता की बात, लोकल जिसको कहा जा रहा है, आजकल स्थानीयता। उस परसों भी बातचीत हो रही थी कि ये जो हम सब ने पढ़ा है ना हाई स्कूल इंटर में, देश काल परिस्थिति पढ़ा है ना, ये 3 शब्द बहुत पढ़ने को मिलता है इतिहास में। ये है कि जो स्थान है, समय है और परिस्थितियां हैं, इसके आधार पर चीजों को तय किया जाना चाहिए, सारा डिजाइन इसके आधार। जब इसके आधार पर डिजाइन बनता है तो हर गांव की डिजाइन में भिन्नता आ जाएगी, हर ब्लॉक की डिजाइन में भिन्नता आएगी, हर तो ये जो विविधता है उसमें भी एक समानता बनेगी, लेकिन इसका सम्मान करना होगा और इसको ध्यान में रख करके प्रोग्रामों का नियोजन करना पड़ेगा। इसी को स्वदेशी कहते हैं। स्वदेशी का मुख्य मतलब यही है, स्थानीयता। दूसरा, जो आत्मनिर्भरता की बात हो रही है, स्वावलंबन की बात हो रही है, उस पर जोर देना होगा, उसको समझना होगा। दूसरा, पूरे के पूरे प्रकृति का जो विकास का जो ढांचा बनेगा वो प्रकृति केंद्रित बनना चाहिए। जो भी स्ट्रक्चर खड़ा करते हैं, अभी जैसे बता रही थी ना विभा जी कि मकान जब ईंट के और उसके बनते हैं तो प्रकृति का कैसे होता है, इन्होंने मिट्टी के बनाए, तो ऐसा हो कि प्रकृति केंद्रित विकास का ढांचा हो, कोऑपरेटिव पूरा को फोकस करना होगा, और ग्रामोद्योग और एप्रोप्रिएट टेक्नोलॉजी। तो ये कुछ 5 सूत्र हैं कि इसको एक दिमाग में रख के चलेंगे, केंद्र में रख के जो भी नियोजन करेंगे, जो भी करेंगे, और अंत में रणनीति क्या हो, लास्ट जो है कि वो पूरे आइडियल विलेज की फिर रणनीति क्या बनेगी। एक तो ये बनेगी जो मैंने शुरू कहा, पूर्ण सहभागिता का अवसर मिलना चाहिए, विचार का, निर्णय का और क्रिया। सहभागिता को लेकर के बहुत गड़बड़ है, सिर्फ क्रियान्वयन के स्तर पर ही सहभागिता को सरकारी स्तर पर या दूसरे स्तर पर प्रदर्शित किया जाता है ओनली। उसी को मान लेते हैं, एक शौचालय है, दिल्ली में बैठकर डिजाइन बन गया, बजट तय हो गया, गांव वाले के पास आ गया, पंचायत के पास, आपको ऐसा शौचालय बनवा देना है। वो जरा सा भी टेढ़ा नहीं कर सकता, कुछ भी नहीं कर सकता, एक पैसा इधर से। कहते हैं कि हम तो पार्टिसिपेशन से बन रहा है। उदाहरण देते हैं कि जैसे गाँव में बैल, गाँव का किसान होता है तो रात में निर्णय ले लेता है, विचार करता है, निर्णय ले लेता है, सुबह क्या करता है, अपने बैल को लेता है, बैल के कंधे पर वो जुआ डालता है, हल लेता है, और खेत में जाकर बिना बैल के तो जोत नहीं सकता, कहेगा मैंने बैलों को पार्टिसिपेट, उनका पार्टिसिपेशन हो, बैल से न। क्या लगता है पूरे देश कहीं बैल तो नहीं बन गया है, कहीं तय हो रहा है पूरे देश उसी रास्ते पर। तो हमें आइडियल विलेज के लिए पार्टिसिपेशन का सही अर्थ लेना होगा, सही अर्थों से उसको ले सकते। और ये जब होगा तो निर्णय का अधिकार मिलेगा, और निर्णय के अधिकार से ओनरशिप ऑटोमेटिक आ जाती है। आती ही ओनरशिप है जब आपको निर्णय का अधिकार देता है। मालिक वही होता है जो निर्णय देता है। जिस दिन गांव अपने बारे में निर्णय लेने लगेगा, गांव खुद का मालिक बन जाएगा, फिर गांव का मालिक बन जाएगा। स्थानीयता का सम्मान मैंने पहले कहा था, और एक चीज और, गतिशील परंपरा का संरक्षण। ये कुल मिलाकर फिर कार्यक्रम तो अपने अपने तरीके से निर्मित हो जाएंगे। ये कुल मिलाकर के जो सशक्तिकरण था, सामाजिक समायोजन था और आइडियल व्यवस्था। थैंक यू सो
बहुत डीप कॉन्सेप्ट है आपका, और उस पर बिल्कुल बेस से मतलब निर्माण करने की बात है, साइकोलॉजिकली एज वेल एज एम्पावरिंग वन सेल्फ एंड द सोशल बॉन्डिंग। तो काफ़ी बड़ा, बहुत बड़ा काम, मतलब वो थोड़ा घबराहट सी हो रही है सोच के कि इतना बड़ा काम हम सच में बता रहे हैं।
इसका इलस्ट्रेशन
नहीं, आप बैठे हैं और आपने बहुत अच्छा मॉडल बनाया उसका, but my point was that बहुत चीज़ें पैरेलल भी होती हैं। तो जब इकोनॉमिक अपॉर्चुनिटीज नहीं होती, हम बहुत ऊपर से बता रहे हैं क्योंकि और बाहर की नज़र से बता रहे हैं कि जब अपना जहाँ इकोनॉमिक अपॉर्चुनिटीज नहीं है उसकी वजह से ये सब डिसइंटीग्रेशन हुआ, लोग नहीं रहने लगे गांव में, गांव रहने लायक नहीं रहा, कई रिश्ते टूटे, कई लोग निकले और कई तरह की इम्पोजिशंस आई हैं। जैसे अपॉर्चुनिटीज़, इकोनॉमिक अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ बढ़ेंगी गांव में और गांव का माहौल रहने लायक, सैनिटेशन और हेल्थ ठीक रहा और ज़्यादा लोगों को लगे, जब रहने लगेंगे साथ तो रिश्ते भी बन जाएंगे। जब रहना ही होता है तो रिश्ते भी बन जाते हैं, ऐसा मेरा मानना है। उस पर काम करना ज़रूरी है, जिस पे ज़्यादा काम करना ज़रूरी है, ये तो उसकी इकोनॉमिक कंडीशन एम्पावर करें और उसकी जगह एम्पावर करें और उनको अपनी राइट्स, ये जो डिसीजन मेकिंग आपने बताया पार्टिसिपेटरी, उस पे बहुत ज़्यादा एजुकेशन दिया जाए, क्योंकि पता ही नहीं लोगों को अपने राइट्स का कि हमारे पास ये अधिकार है। जब पता चल जाएगा तो वो अपने आप साइकोलॉजिकली आदमी बदलता भी है, क्योंकि उसको अपनी शक्ति भी बढ़ती है। ऐसा
इसमें एक चीज जोड़ना है बस, और जैसा इन्होंने कहा कि उदाहरण के रूप में जोड़ता हूँ, वास्तव में ये जो 3 खाने हमने बनाए, ये कोई कंपार्टमेंट नहीं है, ये प्रायोरिटी का। जैसे शुरू में ऐसा नहीं है कि जब आप शुरुआत करेंगे तो निर्माण का काम नहीं करेंगे या प्रोग्राम नहीं करेंगे या व्यवस्था को ठीक करने का काम नहीं करेंगे, लेकिन फोकस रहेगा शुरुआती दौर में कि लोग आपस में बैठे, उनका भाईचारा विकसित हो। सेम पैटर्न है, क्योंकि ये तीनों लेवल पर तीनों प्रयास चाहिए, तीनों कालखंडों में, तीनों भागों में, तीनों, कभी कोई प्रायोरिटी में होगा, कोई सेकेंडरी होगा, बस अंतर इतना हो। और यही कुशलता है। ये अगर जैसे शुरू में हमने पूरा प्रोग्राम फोकस कर दिया, वहाँ पर लोगों में जागरूकता नहीं आई, जैसे कहते हैं वो मिट्टी जमीन तैयार नहीं हुई, लेकिन हमने बो दिया तो बेकार हो जाएगा। तो कब वो जो गांव के अंदर जो भी लीडरशिप कर रहा है, लीड कर रहा है, उसको बहुत सोच करके बड़े बैलेंस के साथ इन तीनों चीज़ों का प्रयोग करना, और तीनों पैरेलल चलेंगे जो आप कह रहे हैं, हट के नहीं चलेंगे।
और अच्छा आपने मॉडल भी बनाया है और उसका इम्प्लीमेंटेशन भी यही बहुत अच्छा आपने
थोड़ा सा इकोनॉमिक हमें गाँव में मान लीजिए 50 लोगों की वहाँ हर किसी की सब्जी को A ग्रेड नहीं हो, A ग्रेड नहीं हो, B ग्रेड नहीं हो, B ग्रेड को थोड़ा डिस्काउंट कर देंगे, C ग्रेड को ही हमने तो इकोनॉमिक एम्पावरमेंट तीनों को करने की कोशिश की। तो क्या हुआ कि ये गाँव का 3 हिस्सों में जैसे 3 हिस्सों में बटा, सिर्फ इकोनॉमिक एम्पावरमेंट पूरा का पूरा मॉडल इसके आगे चलना मुश्किल। और ये हम अनुभव करते हैं, हम एंटरप्रेन्योर्स हैं। एज एंटरप्रेन्योर my basic instinct is to be competitive and to be ahead. But a rural community, a society which has to be self-governing, has to be empowered, has to have a balance between competition and collaboration. That's all.
जो बताया है exactly same हमने फेस किया
बस प्रेजेंटेशन हो तो पहले
और जो
just last discussion
सही सेंटेंस का मैडम ने जो कहा राइट्स नहीं जानते हैं, राइट्स नहीं जानते हैं, मुझे लगता है मैम राइट्स से पहले ड्यूटीज भी जानना जरूरी है। आजकल राइट बेस्ड जितने भी एक्टिविज्म हो रहा है हमारे देश में, जितनी भी सब राइट बेस्ड एक्टिविज्म, ड्यूटी की कोई बात ही नहीं करता।
बहुत बढ़िया कहा आपने। So I hope all the students of BHU are following the conversation closely, the discussions also, and enjoying it. तो प्राण साहब आपसे एक गुजारिश रहेगी, क्योंकि हम पूरा नहीं सुन सके ठीक से, आपको 10-15 मिनट हमको देने पड़ेंगे अलग से। थैंक यू सो मच। तो ठीक है, तो हमारे पास अब 2 एमिनेंट स्पीकर्स ऑनलाइन हैं, तो मैं पहले वरुण विद्यार्थी को कहता हूँ कि वो स्टार्ट करें अपना प्रेजेंटेशन और अपने आप को इंट्रोड्यूस भी कर दें, तो दैट विल बी बेटर एंड फास्टर।
वरुण जी आवाज़ सुन रहे हैं आप?
आप मेरी आवाज सुन रहे हैं क्या?
बेसब्री से सुनने की।
आप मेरी आवाज सुन रहे हैं?
हाँ सुन रहे हैं, बहुत साफ आ रही है आवाज आपकी।
आप मेरी आवाज सुन रहे हैं?
आपको हमारी आवाज पूरी तरह से सुन पा रहे हैं।
क्या आप मेरी आवाज सुन रहे हैं?
आप हमारी बात सुन रहे हैं वरुण जी?
प्रदीप जी आवाज आ रही है?
आ रही है,
बहुत साफ आ रही है, बहुत साफ आ रही है।
बहुत
अब आप स्टार्ट कर लीजिए। जल्दी से, क्योंकि 7-8 मिनट है आपके पास।
जी प्रदीप जी, स्मिता जी और भी अन्य जो लोग बैठे हैं वहाँ पर, मैं चूँकि समय कम है, मैं आगे के कार्यक्रम को देखते हुए कुछ चुनी बातों पर फोकस करना चाहूँगा। और वो है कि जब हम कोई भी कार्यक्रम को अपस्केल करते हैं, हम लोग के बहुत अपने अपने स्तर पर बड़े सुंदर अनुभव होते हैं, लेकिन जैसे ही कोशिश करते हैं कि उसको एक नए स्तर पे ले जाया जाए तो तमाम तरह की दिक्कतें सामने आती हैं। उन दिक्कतों को कैसे पार करें, मैं इतने पर ही कोशिश करूंगा कि अपने आप को सीमित रखूं, क्योंकि समय बहुत कम है। स्वयं सहायता समूह की हम लोग जननी कहलाते थे। 1980 के दशक में ये कार्यक्रम शुरू किया था। तो शुरू में बहुत अच्छे अनुभव है, मैं बहुत सारी आपको कहानियां सुना सकता हूँ। बिल्कुल गरीबतम महिलाओं के सशक्तिकरण कैसे हुआ, किस तरह से उन्होंने अपनी जिम्मेदारी में अपने पूरे जीवन को ही बदल दिया। चुनौती तब आती है जब इन मुद्दों को हम अपस्केल करना चाहते हैं। अब चूंकि हमारे पास विभिन्न तरह के लोग आने लगे, सरकारी तंत्र में, गैर सरकारी तंत्र में, कि हर एक कोई इसको पकड़कर अपने अपने क्षेत्र में नए सिरे से कार्यक्रम करना चाहते थे। बहुत विस्तृत पैमाने पे हमने प्रशिक्षण किया, लेकिन फिर देखा कि अपस्केलिंग करने में बहुत सारे पिटफॉल्स हैं, सो मेनी पिटफॉल्स, एंड दैट्स वेयर आई लाइक टू स्पीक हियर। कि जब हम कोशिश करते हैं किसी भी चीज़ को एक दूसरे स्तर पर ले जाने की, तो उसमें किस तरह के पिटफॉल्स आते हैं, उनको कैसे अवॉइड किया जा सकता है। और मैं यहाँ पर आपके सामने उपस्थित ये करना चाहता हूँ कि इनको पूरी तरह से अवॉइड किया जा सकता है, चीज़ों को अपस्केल किया जा सकता है, सही दिशा में अपस्केल किया जा सकता है, लेकिन इसकी टेक्निक, इसके मेथड्स थोड़े से अलग हैं और हम लोग उस पर थोड़ी चर्चा करें। इनको हम लोग ने एक टाइटल दिया है फैसिलिटेशन। इस काम को किसी भी, जब एनेबलिंग और एम्पावरमेंट का काम होता है, जब गरीब तक पहुंचने का काम होता है, गरीब को सशक्त करने का काम होता है, तो ऊपर से कुछ दे के नहीं किया जा सकता। उन्हीं में ही क्षमता बढ़ाई जाती है कि वो अपने कार्यक्रम को एक बिल्कुल नया रूप दे दें। अब मैं अपस्केलिंग का एक छोटा सा नमूना पहले आपको पेश करूँगा, फिर मैं आगे बताऊँ। सबसे पहले 1994 में हमारे पास NGO तो सरकारी तंत्र के लोग आए थे कि साहब हम इस मॉडल को इलाहाबाद के जिले में अपस्केल करेंगे। वहाँ का एक गाँव हमें अभी भी याद है, वहाँ पर वो लोग गए और वो जाके पूरी तरह से असफल हो गए। हमने कहा भाई क्या बात है, समझने के लिए हम फिर वहाँ पर गए, उसी गांव में गए। जाकर देखा तो जो मूल आधार हमने समझाया हुआ था, वहीं पर वहाँ पर लोग, जैसे आमतौर से होता भी अब भी होता है, और यहीं पर हम लोग को बहुत ध्यान रखने की आवश्यकता है। छोटी छोटी बातें कम्युनिकेशन की, बैठक कहाँ हो रही है, कौन बोल रहा है। हमने वहाँ पे देखा कि बैठक तो बिल्कुल गरीब के क्षेत्र में हो ही नहीं रही थी, क्योंकि वो बहुत गंदी जगह थी। वहाँ पे हर समय कीचड़ हो रही थी, मक्खियाँ थी, पानी भरा हुआ था, टूटा था, गंदगी थी। हम सीधे वहाँ पहुँच गए, मैं सिर्फ वो धारा दे रहा हूँ जल्दी से। जैसे ही वहाँ पहुँचे, बहुत बड़ी भीड़ जमा हो गई। उनके साथ जब बात करना शुरू किया तो हमने अपने मूल मुद्दे पे तो बात ही नहीं करी। हमने उनके साथ एकदम भाई बहन की तरह से बात करना शुरू किया। और एक विश्वास मानिए, जब बहुत गरीब महिला होती है तुरंत रो देती है, और ये पहचान होती है उसके साथ एक संपर्क बनाने। उन्होंने रो रो के कहा साहब आप जो भी कुछ करना चाहते थे हमारी समस्या एक बार सुनी थी। और जब उनकी समस्या सुनी तो हमारे होश में उड़ गए। वहाँ पास में से एक छोटी सी नदियाँ सी बहती थी और कहते थे ना बड़े लोग इसका पानी रोक लेते हैं, पानी फैल जाता है, हमारे घरों की कच्ची दीवारें ढह जाती। बताइए, हमारे दिमाग में बड़ी ऊँची ऊँची बातें थी और वो कुछ और बात कहना चाह रही थी। तो ये जो इनिशियल कनेक्शन है, इस चीज़ को हमें सिखाना होता है कि वो किस तरह से वो कम्युनिकेट करें, किस तरह से। उसके लिए सबसे पहली आवश्यकता ये है कि हम अपना पूरा अहंकार पूरा त्याग दें, बिल्कुल साधारण मानव की तरह से उनके स्तर तक पहुँचें। यही ये बहुत बड़ी बाधा सामने आ जाती है और ये हमें सिखाना पड़ता है। हम जब सिखाते हैं अपनी ट्रेनिंग में, पिछले 25 साल से इन्हीं बातों को ट्रेनिंग दे रहा हूँ। दो बातें इसमें और थोड़ा सा कहना चाहूँगा, ट्रेनिंग के विषय में बाद में बताऊँगा। जो फैसिलिटेशन का कॉन्सेप्ट है, इसमें दो तरह के फैसिलिटेटर होते हैं जब हम अपस्केल करते हैं। एक वो होते हैं जो बाहरी होते हैं, यानी वो उस गांव के रहने वाले नहीं होते, उनको वहां जाकर बातों को शुरुआत करनी पड़ती है, एक चर्चा शुरू करनी पड़ती है। बाहरी एक्सटर्नल फैसिलिटेटर्स, corresponding to the external facilitators, there have to be several internal facilitators, and this has to be properly designed. Their training needs are separate, their selection process is different. इन चीज़ों को अगर हम लोग ध्यान से देखेंगे तो हम देखेंगे कि ये छोटी छोटी बातें कहीं पर जाके बिल्कुल उलट फेर कर देती हैं। उदाहरण के लिए हम सोचते हैं कि भाई सब कुछ बहुत अच्छा है, लेकिन बोथ आउटसाइड एंड इंटरनल फैसिलिटेटर्स दोनों के दिमाग में इतनी सारी जो लेट अस से प्री कंसीव नोशंस बायसेस भरे रहते हैं, उनको साफ करना, उनको क्लियर करना बहुत जरूरी है। उदाहरण के लिए हम लोग सोचते हैं कि ये सब जातिवाद से ऊपर है, लेकिन जातिवाद का कहर इतना फैला हुआ है कि अगर हम सोचते हैं कि हमारे गांव में जो लोग काम कर रहे हैं शायद कहीं गलत हो जाएंगे, पुरुषवाद इतना फैला हुआ है, तो हमको इसको साफ करने के लिए we use our traditional spiritual ethos। हम इसमें पतंजलि के जो 8 नियम हैं उनको यूज करते हैं, शौच, तप, संतोष, स्वाध्याय, ईश्वर प्रणिधान। तो शौच का क्या मतलब है, ये हम लोग ट्रेनिंग की मैं बातें बता रहा हूँ। शौच का मानसिक जो मन को साफ करना है, जो हमें बाहर से साफ करने हैं, उसके लिए फिर हम टेक्निक्स बताते हैं। घर में जाके आप काम करना शुरू करिए, बर्तन मांजना शुरू करिए, देखिए कितना फर्क पड़ जाता है आपके घर के रिलेशनशिप में, आपके लोगों की सोच के बारे में, आपके व्यवहार। कुछ बातें करना बहुत आसान है, लेकिन धरातल पे काम करने के लिए छोटी छोटी बातों की ओर इंगित करना, उनको असाइनमेंट देना, उनको समझाना, प्यार से समझाकर हम देखते हैं कि इसमें बड़े जबरदस्त चेंजेस आते हैं। मैं इसलिए आपसे कह रहा हूँ कि हमने तो सरकारी तंत्र के बड़े बड़े लोगों को ट्रेनिंग दी, वीडियोस को, एडीओस को, ग्राम विकास अधिकारियों को, और वो लोग जो बिल्कुल करप्ट होते थे, उनसे उम्मीद करना कि जाके कनेक्ट करें, हमें शुरू में लगा कि तो असंभव काम होगा, बट ट्रेनिंग मेथड्स के द्वारा, सही ट्रेनिंग मेथड्स के द्वारा ये बिल्कुल संभव है। और मैं आपको ये बताने आ रहा हूँ आज कि इस समय अगर हम लोगों को, जैसे आप लोग 10,000 गाँव लेने की सोच रहे हैं, उससे भी ज़्यादा बहुत अच्छा हम लोग 1 लाख गाँव तक लें, लेकिन उसमें हमें इस बात का ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा कि हमारी तरफ से वहाँ पर कौन है, वो एक्सटर्नल कौन फैसिलिटेटर है, इंटरनल फैसिलिटेटर का चुनाव किस तरह से किया गया है,
वरुण जी,
कैसे ट्रेन किया गया है,
आपको सुनाई दे रहा है?
आएंगे उसको कैसे डील करेंगे। ये समस्या बहुत विकराल रूप ले लेती है। इसमें आकर हमारे सामने जब हम लोग ने बैंक के लोगों को ट्रेन करना शुरू किया, तो उन्होंने आके कहना कहा कि साहब हम तो वहाँ पे गए थे, लेकिन हमें तो लोगों ने कहा कि यहाँ से जाइए जी, आपके साथ बातें नहीं हुई। उन्होंने मेरे को फोन किया, मैंने कहा कि साहब देखिए एक सिद्धांत है इसमें, अगर आप पहली बार में सफल हो जाते हैं, इसका मतलब कुछ ना कुछ गड़बड़ है।
वरुण जी, आपका 1 मिनट में लेना चाहता हूँ, ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि आप जो विषय डिस्कस कर रहे हैं, इन विषयों के ऊपर बहुत गहराई से पिछले 3 दिनों में बहुत ज़्यादा बातचीत हो चुकी है। आप ज्वाइन नहीं कर सके थे, तो हर चीज़ के ऊपर, ट्रेनिंग के ऊपर, करप्शन के ऊपर, मेथड्स के ऊपर, मेथडोलॉजी के ऊपर, तो वी हैव टू कम टू द कंक्लूजन नाउ अबाउट द
जब हम सही दिशा में ले जाने के लिए व्यक्ति को तैयार करते हैं, तो उसके लिए we have to use many of our traditional steps. Coming back to the Indian spiritual ethos, have a long discussion, we call it collective reflection, and through that process we have experienced that it is possible to change both knowledge structure, values and attitudes of people, which is fundamental to the process of change. And then we can bring in any technology, energy, whatever we are wanting to do, that also has to be added to the process. If we are able to add to the information these soft components, then our programs become far more effective. And this is what I would like to say in terms of scaling up. The other aspect is, of course, our own understanding of where to choose and how to go. So there is a process of selection, but I believe since I have not been part of this whole process, I simply like to say I apologize for not being together with you all today, and I really appreciate your willingness to hear me out this short presentation. I will be very happy to contribute to the process based on the large experience that we've had in training a large number of people, both government and non-government organizations. So this is very well. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Varun ji. I am sure he is not able to hear currently because of some technical issues. We will now request Kavita Kapur. One word before I ask her to introduce herself. She is sitting in Washington DC. It's very late in the night and early morning in Washington DC. For the last 3 days, she's been awake from for the entire night, listening to all the sessions, including the first day session with Ajay, and giving her comments as you have seen. And even now it's about 7 a.m. or something in Washington. And she's been on different sessions, listening and understanding. So over to you, Kavita, if you can hear me.
Hello, ma'am. Am I audible?
Main system.
What are you saying?
Hello.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Varun जी आप सुन सकते हैं ना? जी मैं सुन सकता हूँ. हाँ, so that means वो lag बहुत है उसमें.
Now we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, there is a namaste. Thank you for this opportunity today. मैंने कितने ध्यान से सुना है और जो मेरे से पहले सब कह चुके हैं. I think keeping all that in mind, I don't want to repeat what's already been said, and I think all of us have same feelings and experiences. What I want to bring to you today is a bit of experience that we've had in the Aravali district. So a couple of learnings that we have. There is a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm not going to get into it. I'm going to focus and explain to you what we started with and what we learned in the process. I think right now it's a time for us to step back and reflect. तो हमने जब शुरू किया, हमने भी बहुत पहले रिसर्च किया, बात किया, कॉन्फ्रेंस किया, हमने करारे बात. सबसे पहले तो कम्युनिटी को देखा, ठीक है? So we had this big framework which we call SVDF, Smart Village Development Framework, in which the community was at the center. And the reasons that we put it at the center, I will say to you, was because we felt, that while we are working for the community, सब बोलने लगे कि अगर आपको कुछ भी sustainable करना है, you have to work with the community. So fine. We also had a framework where we said we will build on the strengths of the community, we will build on the strengths of the NGOs. So we did that. Then we said we will have to measure where is the community to take. तो हमने बहुत अच्छा development का model है हमारा, which is thanks to Dr. Jayanti Ravi. And it's I think in one of the previous presentations, Master Kapur explained it. But it basically हर एक फूल की एक पत्ती जो है उसको हम एक डेवलपमेंट फैक्टर पे ले लेते हैं और बोलते हैं कि इसकी डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कैसी है, इसकी डेप्थ क्या है, इसकी लेंथ क्या है, कितने लोगों को पहुंचना है और किस अमाउंट में पहुंचना है. सब कुछ चेक किया और हमको ये भी आइडिया था कि लाइवलीहुड की हम बात कर रहे हैं, एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप की बात कर रहे हैं, पॉवर्टी एलिवेशन की बात कर रहे हैं. All this stuff about livelihood is not there without life. So इसलिए water, health, electricity, and education were all factors that we went on. Okay? And this is how we started. We started in 2018, so we are a much younger, I would say, program than a lot of you over here with your vast experience. And I tell you, what we have learned. What we have learned is you can come with the best of models in the world, and we have some really, really respected NGOs as our partners. We have Mission Sundari, we work with Mother Chandra, we work with Sarkar Foundation, we work with the IITs. But what we felt was that till you develop that trust with the people you are working with, every model is nothing. The best of models and the best of partners and the best of designs fail when you go first. This is what we face equally in our practice. अगर आपके आपस में ट्रस्ट नहीं है तो वो फिर बात करें टूट जाती है। बेस तो ट्रस्ट है ना, और ट्रस्ट का बेस सारी दुनिया जानती है कम्युनिकेशन। कम्युनिकेशन बहुत ही अच्छा समझाया माथुर to get into it. So one learning is just for any empowerment, any poverty elevation, any model. So how are you going to develop that trust? It's not going to be possible at a distance. If you want to develop the trust, you've got to be there on the spot, which makes a peak ground of critical. Then going back to the training of those people, and not just the training, the attitude of those people. How are they? So that this is the thing for me. I am.
One second,
The person whom you're working for, this and not or we require it to take around. I think there's a problem. Pradeep calling me. Hanji.
There is a difficulty in the sound track, so you can mute that and talk on. Continue talking on the phone, or putting it on the speaker from.
Okay. Did you hear what I said before, or you want me to repeat?
No, you have to repeat the last 2 minutes because your sound was, the voice was fading.
Okay. So the point I was saying is that to develop the trust and to be the critical component is the people who are there. You're not going to be able to do this from far. You are not going to be able to do it through your own room.
Yes, you can do training, you can do reflection, you can make a strategy, you can definitely have a dialogue. But people
on the ground are very important. अगर आप हमारा मॉडल देखते हैं तो हमारे मॉडल में एक पिलर है परिभाषा का. I don't know how to show you this model. अभी आ रही है?
आ रही है.
अच्छा, तो हमारे मॉडल में एक एस्पेक्ट है जिसे हम परिव्राजक बोलते हैं. और मेरी आप सबसे अपील है कि हमें ये परिव्राजक की सख्त जरूरत है. जब तक हम ये कम्युनिटी ऑफ परिव्राजक जो कि चेंज एजेंट समझ लीजिए, जो वो विलेज में बैठेंगे, बातचीत करेंगे, डायलॉग करेंगे और इस पर्पस को आगे लेकर जाएंगे, those that community we need to develop. And how are you going to develop it? I will leave it to lot of you who have experience in that. The other learning that we have had is that when you are at what stage are you getting the community engaged? 22 लोग हमने ट्रेन किए. So maybe जब हम उस प्रोग्राम को ही डिजाइन कर रहे थे और we were looking at what kind of jobs will come out of it, at that point of time we should have engaged with the people for whom we are doing it. But again, these are errors because we never put community in front. We were taking the community as somebody we are working, as stakeholders, जैसे वो उसमें corporate parlance में बोलते हैं they are stakeholders, and we are also stakeholders. The government is also stakeholders. Everybody is stakeholders, but they are not stakeholders. They are really the people we are working for. So we have to give them that agency. The other learning for us was that inspiration is also another very important element. What are we inspiring them with? अगर आप एक रूरल कम्युनिटी को जा रहे हैं, कहीं भी जा रहे हैं, अगर आप उनको इमेजेस और विजन्स वो दिखा रहे हैं जो शहर की है, तो how you expect them to live in the village? Look at us, all of us who have come out of India and we are working in United States. We also left our village behind. We are also here in another country. Why did we come here? Because there was an attraction to this thing, or there was something that pulled us here. So if we have to, and now how does Bharat Sarkar want us to come back? By inspiring us and saying that India has become good. Here is opportunity for you to come back. But coming back is the next step. I again salute Mission Samriddhi for its program of Nadi Yatra, and I really think, going back to the model that we built, we have not been able to do that, and I feel that lacking now when I talk to the people. फिर हम stories करते हैं. We have stories from our perspective. All of us have presented, and those were phenomenal learning for us. I think let's start a movement of stories from the villagers' perspective. How many villagers do we have around this table today who can tell their story? How did their life change with what we bought for them, or how the way they look at it? So let's start a movement of collecting the stories from villagers' perspective. And my last suggestion to you is, we need to continue this learning, this whole attitude of learning. Very, very happy to be a part of this conference. A little bit far, but I've been listening to everything that's been going on as far as I could in the middle of the night. But we need to make sure that this happens continuously. We all get together, we all share what our wisdom along with the people we are working with. And I think this is really a step in the right direction. Thank you so much. It's been a huge learning for me to listen to all of you, and really inspired to continue to work in this journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much for keeping awake these 3 nights in a row. And
Steve fell today.
I was wanting to show this PowerPoint, especially the model that we have for approach to rural development. It's there in the PowerPoint slides we sent. I think we can just put it in the village, whatever documents come out.
thank you so much.
Everybody.
So, and if you just want to run through the slide without description, just show what you have in the PowerPoint, and we will go on to the next speaker.
Am I allowed to show it here through WebEx?
Yes, absolutely. You can load it. So in the meantime, Kavita Kapur is my better half. And she has been working with us for so she's a faculty member there in Washington DC, and she couldn't take leave and come here, so she's joined online for the last 3 days, the last 3 nights. So that's a PowerPoint which we have shared on the group thing also. I'll share it with some of the student volunteers so that they also get a chance to have a look at that PowerPoint. Now what she has mentioned, I just want to draw our attention to one important point about having villagers on the table. We have Naresh, please stand up and be acknowledged. A round of applause for Naresh. He's come from Aravali, and a round of applause for the speaker Kavita also. And जो हमको चाहिए अरावली में कि परिव्राजक, जो डेफिनेशन हम फिर से रिपीट कर देते हैं जो डॉक्टर कविता कपूर ने मेंशन किया था. Parivrajak is a term which was used by Swami Vivekananda for people who were like wandering minstrels. जो एक गांव से दूसरे गांव जाते थे, रहते थे गांव वालों के साथ, उनकी कहानियां सुनते भी थे, उनको सुनाते भी थे, उनसे समझते थे कि क्या उनको प्रॉब्लम्स हैं और क्या उनके पैटर्न्स हैं और क्या उनके एंटी पैटर्न्स हैं. So we need parivrajaks from the student community, yeah, which means that what you have to do, what is the requirement as a parivrajak, that you have to approach us directly and say that you want to be a parivrajak for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Then we will organize for you to stay in the village with the villagers. Listen to them, live as a villager, and we will look after your basic expenses of transport and travel and food, but the villagers will be feeding you, so there will be very little expense as such. And then to come back with your story as to what you have learned about that village, what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, what are the requirements, what are the patterns, what are the anti-patterns, what will help that village to make progress. So that is a parivraj. So if any of you get interested in that role, now I'm not talking only to the students. Here I'm talking to the main table also. Yes, you have been a parivrajak for 40 years or 50 years, but we will. So नहीं बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. So we have taken note of it. तो नरेश एक इनका वो immediately arrangement कर देंगे. अजय कुमार है.
Immediately नहीं, January करना है.
नहीं वो डेट आप डिसाइड करेंगे but.
And I'd like to add that the other learning we've had is that cluster of villages works better than one village.
Yeah, that we have discussed earlier. And
okay, you may discuss, and I'm not going to get into it, but I think parivrajaks is important.
Yeah, so
and I really, and we should Pradeep talk about that IIT link of students and the community.
Yeah,
what we did and what we planned for.
Right. So when we started the project in Aravali, one of the first things which Dr. Jayanti Ravi said was that we should have parivrajaks. And now we are understanding the wisdom of it after listening to Siddhanti, Chandra, Shekar, Pran and all the others on the first day.
Well,
what is a necessity, what is a utility, what is the worth of it. So it has been reinforced many times. So we are still rotating around in circles and we want to now get out of that circle. And second thing was,
Still give a challenge. Some students should offer, right? For 1 week, parivrajak for 1 week.
okay, क्या नाम है आपका?
Okay, Aditya. One girl also.
Aditya.
One girl also for 1 week. Give them a challenge, they'll take it up.
Clap, clap.
So हमें students take चाहिए. What we want is, you want to adopt one village. Do it as a group, do it single. जो आपका जैसे कि it should be your village. आप जब चाहे वहाँ जाएं, आप उसके बारे में सोचें, आप वहाँ जाकर रहें. और हमने IIT से भी बात की है to put that into a curriculum. So that you really go there and sensitize yourself to what is the reality of life. So that should become your focus in whatever career you take tomorrow. So it's going to be long term, but I think it will be, and उनके लिए बहुत अच्छा होगा to interact with you. वहाँ बच्चे हैं स्कूलों में, वहाँ आपकी उम्र के लोग हैं, who are wanting to interact with you, who want to understand from you also what is your life, what is your thinking. So I think this networking, हम corporate में बात करते हैं social capital, networking, but that's very important at the village level.
So Dr. Jayanti Ravi's request is 2 weeks at a stretch minimum, and then another 2 weeks after a gap, or 1 month at a stretch, but minimum is 2 weeks required. So the students, we will support you of course, but we will require 2 weeks of time. And with the other IIT, with some of the other IIT directors, we have come to a agreement that they will also get some credit points. Depending on the duration that they spend in the village for this rural project work, 1 credit or 2 credits will come to your this thing, your GPA. So that also we will discuss with the IIT, with the IMS director here, Professor Suresh, that he can give that sort of credit. So let us work on that and move ahead with that. The next speaker here, but thank you, this has been very useful to. Yeah.
Can you also bring Mathur ji? He wants to say something and he's not able to say. Mr. Varun, you have his number?
I see. He's on the screen.
Yeah.
Just send him a chat message and he can talk. He's on the screen. Yes. Should I get him on the line at the same time? वो लगा दे उसका
Sorry, you are audible, please continue. Sir, can you hear me?
Training students from IIT Delhi in what you just mentioned. I was, after having spent 40 years in the rural sector, I was invited to become professor of practice at IIT Delhi in the new department. It's called the National There I was teaching the concept of values-based change, which implied students to connect to the very poor people in their own area, to start having a different kind of relationship with people around them, and to develop a new forms of relationship with people who are the most disadvantaged. And the process that we followed led to very useful outcomes. So if we have to generate, the kind of people that you're saying, pracharak, I don't know that word, we call them facilitators. Of course, I like the term that you use. We really have to get down to, churning out this kind of people, even if they don't want to come into the sector. If they learn about the basics, their whole career, their life, their ways of thinking, living and working will change drastically. And that is what is needed. We need a new narrative now to move forward. Rather than with big packages, we need people with better understanding of their own self, of their relationships, and how they can contribute to society wherever they are, even if they are sitting in the US. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And
Thank you very much. I think that's exactly where we are. And I think everybody is talking about it. So we definitely need more such conferences and get-togethers and workshops where we can put our, and maybe we can have them virtual.
We are running out of time. We'll have to move on to the next speaker, and that is Mr. Ajay Kumar. Thank you for coming from so far and being with us for the last 3 days.
I think they're talking and we can
Please start.
तो मैं क्या करती हूँ इसमें a link to the conference on the.
My name is Ajay Kumar. I belong to Himachal Pradesh. I studied in Punjab in a army school and then studied B.Tech, M.Tech at IIT Delhi. While I was in IIT, so some said we will do research within India, some said we will go to villages. So I took a wrong decision of coming to villages and ended up in Vardhan, where Center of Science for Villages, Magan Sangralaya, which Vibha mentioned. Her father was the chairman, so I joined that institution and we set up the first rural technology project in India, supported by Government of India. Then I worked in rural energy systems in Gujarat, then computerization projects in several states and Government of India, then with farmers, and finally I am totally unemployed after age of 60. So you can always call me, consult me, I am always free. People tell me I am always busy. So currently, of course, I am partially involved with my wife's organization in Panchayati Raj institutions. तो मैंने जो पॉइंट लिखे हैं थोड़े से बुलेट पॉइंट्स हैं. एम्पावरमेंट कैसे होता है, मैं एम्पावरमेंट की डेफिनेशन में नहीं जा रहा हूँ. एम्पावरमेंट कैसे होता है, एजुकेशन से होता है जिसमें पहले लिटरेसी आता है, फिर इंफॉर्मेशन आता है, फिर कैरियर आता है. ह्यूमन वैल्यूज से होता है, टेक्नोलॉजी से होता है, फाइनेंस से होता है, कम्युनिकेशन नेटवर्क से होता है. मोबाइल इज़ अ क्लासिकल एग्जांपल विच हैज़ एम्पावर्ड सो मेनी पीपल. स्टेबल इनकम से होता है. अनस्टेबल इनकम इज इज नॉट एम्पावरमेंट. स्टेबल इनकम. इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम से होता है, मार्केट से होता है. यूनिटी ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस in the non-government sector, which is SAG, which may be cooperative, maybe trade union, anything, but also unity of organization under the तीसरी सरकार अभियान, यहाँ पंचायत से भी आप यूनिटी क्रिएट कर सकते हैं। और दो और चीज़ें हैं जिसके कारण एम्पावरमेंट होता है। एक तो होता है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट से, जैसा पंचायत का एक्ट हुआ या फॉरेस्ट राइट एक्ट हुआ वगैरह वगैरह। और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट के बाद जो पार्लियामेंट्री या स्टेट लेवल लेजिस्लेशंस हैं वो भी एम्पावरमेंट करती है ना। बच्चियों को साइकिल देनी है, एम्पावरमेंट हो गया लड़कियों को, ऐसा। सो कई तरीके हैं एम्पावरमेंट के। दूसरा हिस्सा है इस टॉपिक का, वो है सोशल इंक्लूजन। सोशल इंक्लूजन में जब तक आप टारगेट ग्रुप्स नहीं डिफाइन करेंगे, है ना, किसको इंक्लूड करना चाहते हैं आप सोशल इंक्लूजन में, तो सबसे पहले आएंगे विमेन, फिर आएंगे बच्चे, फिर आएंगे सीनियर सिटीजन्स, फिर आएंगे गरीब। वैसे गरीब नंबर बड़ा है, विमेन से भी बड़ा है, पर फिर भी मैं सिस्टमेटिकली चल रहा हूँ। फिर जो फिजिकली और मेंटली चैलेंज लोग हैं वो आएंगे एज टारगेट ग्रुप। फिर ऐसे लोग जिनकी की इनकम फ्लक्चुएट होती रहती है, मछली वाला है या कम जमीन वाला है, या फिर रेन फेड एग्रीकल्चर एरिया में जिसकी जमीन है ना, तो इनकी इनकम फ्लक्चुएट होती रहती है। सो दीज आर ऑल डिसएडवांटेज ग्रुप्स जिनको कि इंक्लूजन में अपने को लाना है। अब इंक्लूजन होता कैसे है? स्टेजेस हो सकती हैं, पर मैं जस्ट एट रैंडम मैं पॉइंट्स बोल रहा हूँ। नंबर 1, कंपैशन से इंक्लूजन हो सकता है। अगर आपके पास कंपैशन नहीं है तो आप इंक्लूजन में आ ही नहीं सकते, और आप किसी को ला ही नहीं सकते। ऑब्जर्वेशन से, है ना, जैसे अभी किसी ने बताया था कि मैंने ऑब्जर्व किया तो इंक्लूजन हो गया। फीडबैक फ्रॉम डिसएडवांटेज, अपन डिसएडवांटेज से फीडबैक ही नहीं लेते हैं कभी, है ना। हम जाएंगे तो पंचायत की मीटिंग में बैठ जाएंगे जहाँ पे कि भारी भारी अट्टे कट्टे लोग बैठे हैं, वो गरीब को बोलने ही नहीं देते हैं। वो आप जाएंगे तो बड़ी मीटिंग में चले जाएंगे, आप जाएंगे तो सरकारी मीटिंग में चले जाएंगे, वहाँ पे वो नहीं बोलने देंगे। तो गरीब लोगों का प्रॉपर फीडबैक मिलने से भी इंक्लूजन होता है। फिर फोकस इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप बनाना, उन लोगों के फोकस इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप बनाना, है ना, इससे इंक्लूजन होता है। फिर फोकस इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप आइडेंटिफाई करने के बाद उनका ऑर्गेनाइज करना। एसएचजी में ऑर्गेनाइज करो, कोऑपरेटिव में करो, फार्मर प्रोड्यूसर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में करो, या यूथ क्लब में करो, जो भी जिसमें भी आप करना चाहें उनको करो। एक और तरीका है ये इंक्लूजन का, वो है इक्विटेबल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ बेसिक नीड्स। लैंड, वाटर, घास, पेड़, इनका इक्विटेबल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन जब तक नहीं आप टारगेट करेंगे तब तक इंक्लूजन नहीं हो सकता। एप्रोप्रिएट टेक्नोलॉजी, ये एक बहुत अच्छा तरीका होता है। एप्रोप्रिएट टेक्नोलॉजी का एक बहुत अच्छा उदाहरण हमारे गुरुजी देवेंद्र कुमार जी देते थे कि वो दो पक्षी हैं, है ना, एक कौवे जैसा है और एक वो चोंच वाला, लंबी चोंच वाला, क्या बोलते हैं, बगला। अगर आप बर्तन ऐसा देंगे लंबे मुंह वाला तो बगला ही अंदर जा सकता है, उसका चोंच, कौवे का वो दूसरे का तो नहीं जा सकता। लेकिन अगर वो बर्तन आप ऐसा फ्लैट कर देंगे तो दोनों पी सकते हैं। बगला कम पिएगा, ये चिड़िया जो है दूसरी वो ज़्यादा पिएगा। तो ये टेक्नोलॉजी का एक कैरेक्टर होता है ना, ये इट्स अ साइंस बाय इटसेल्फ। टेक्नोलॉजी का कैरेक्टर है कि डिसएडवांटेज को फायदा करेगा या दूसरों को। और क्योंकि पंचायत में मैं काम कर रहा हूँ, थोड़ा सा आप कितने मिनट देने वाले हैं? बस 1-2 मिनट। 1-2 बहुत है, 1-2 मिनट। तो पंचायत सिस्टम में अच्छा ग्राम पंचायत डेवलपमेंट प्लान, जीपीडीपी जिसको बोलते हैं, मेरे पास कुछ पुस्तकें भी हैं जीपीडीपी पे, जो बहुत ही सीरियस लोग हैं वही लें, 2 ही पुस्तकें बची हैं ना, सबको नहीं मैं चाहूँगा कि लें ये। तो अच्छा GPDP बनाना बेस्ड ऑन डिसएडवांटेज ग्रुप्स, है ना। अपने पंचायत में ऐसे लोग ढूंढे, उनके लिए अलग अलग अपने आवेदन बनाए और वो आपने 15वें वित्त आयोग में या मनरेगा में सबमिट किए, तो इनको फायदा होगा, तो इंक्लूजन हो पाएगा और एम्पावरमेंट हो पाएगा। तो GPDP बनाना जो है एक अपने में ही एक बहुत समय लगता है, नहीं एक बड़ा पावरिंग है, पर एक बहुत कम्बरसम एक एक्सरसाइज है। अगर समझ आ गई आपको तो आप एम्पावर कर सकोगे जनरल लोगों को भी और डिसएडवांटेज को भी। और अगर समझ नहीं आए तो जैसे चल रहा है वैसे हर साल 1 करोड़ रुपया जो हर पंचायत को अवेलेबल है, इसमें 50% इसका रहता है 15वें वित्त आयोग का या 14वें का, और 50% मनरेगा का रहता है। वो वैसा का वैसा ही चलता है। तो बस इतना कह के मैं
थैंक यू वेरी मच।
इसकी सर आप सॉफ्ट कॉपी अवेलेबल करा दीजिएगा जी। इसकी सॉफ्ट कॉपी अवेलेबल करा दीजिएगा अगर
कौन सी सॉफ्ट कॉपी?
इस किताब की, आपकी पुस्तक
किताब की, हाँ तो आप नंबर दे देना।
हाँ वो ज़्यादा
आप एक कागज पे लिख दो।
सॉफ्ट कॉपी है इसकी?
हाँ है।
वो ज़्यादा इजी रहेगा, मतलब बुक का मतलब
पुस्तक दे देंगे तो और अच्छा
दे देंगे तो अच्छा है, लेकिन आपने कहा काम
है। ये मीटिंग के बाद तय कर लेते हैं। आप
तो
मिठाई मिठाई खिलाइए तो मैं
नहीं, बनारस में खिला देंगे आपको, अच्छी मिठाई खिलाएंगे।
ये तो
ये कोई मिठाई है क्या?
तो थैंक यू वेरी मच अजय कुमार जी। हम अजय कुमार को जानते हैं सिंस 72, जब हमने IIT ज्वाइन करा। आज है 2022, 50 years, हाफ अ सेंचुरी। बिग राउंड टू अजय जी। तो क्या हुआ ऐसे, आई मस्ट टेल यू अ स्टोरी। He was a very well-known person, very warm-hearted, very pleasant always, and we were junior to him. He was 75
and an athlete.
And an athlete and outstanding student also. 75 you passed out? 75. So he passed out 2 years before us, and he joined industry, and we were keeping track of him, what he is doing, how he is doing, etc. And then suddenly one day he vanishes completely from the horizon, and very few people know where he is. And after 30 years we realize he has been in the villages, working for the villagers like a parivrajak non-stop. So totally changed person, changed personality. Big round of applause. That is a sort of dedication and love and passion that you can find. Then after that he was in touch, and we have been also, connected and discussing and talking and learning.
My friends have been very kind to me in terms of everything, and in fact there was an award by Alumni Association for national development. So मेरे दोस्त हमेशा बोलते थे कि तुम यह भर दो जरा, साइन कर दो, भर हम देंगे। तो ऐसे 3-4 साल चलता रहा, वो फ्यूचर था नहीं। Finally, एक ने मेरे साइन करवाई लिए।
Very good, very well deserved. So that is a sort of richness you see after doing engineering at IIT, and then to vanish into the villages and stay there with the villagers for so many decades. So tremendous learning, tremendous understanding, tremendous value. Now what I am going to do is, first of all, a very big round of applause to the IM-BHU students for volunteering for Vibha. This is the best. Please खड़े हो जाओ तीनों आप, और एक राउंड ऑफ तालियां यहाँ पर आ जाइए। स्टैंडिंग अप। एडवांस में मिल रही है ऑलरेडी। और आपसे खाली एक रिक्वेस्ट ये रहेगी, आप अपने फ्रेंड्स को भी एनकरेज करना। नरेश, आप भी इनके साथ मिलकर नंबर ले लीजिए। जेबी जी आप भी ले लीजिए, ठीक है? तो हाँ, उनके दोनों के भी ये है यहाँ पर, लिख के फिर मुझे किताब दे दीजिए वापस। अब हम अंतिम चरण पर पहुंच रहे हैं। जो डिस्कशंस रहे हैं बहुत ज्यादा रिच रहे हैं। जो एक्सपेक्टेशन थी हमारी उससे बहुत बहुत आगे बढ़ गए। तो जिन्होंने हेल्प किया इस एफर्ट में, उनका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। हम बहुत आभारी हैं उस टू देम। और इसका पेपर वगैरह बना लेंगे, आउटकम्स क्या है निकल रहे हैं, जो एक्शन पॉइंट्स। बट एक जो बहुत सुंदर इसका नतीजा निकला है, ऑर्गेनाइज्ड जॉइंटली बाय all the organizations I have mentioned, held at Banaras, India, November 11, 12, 13, 2022.
साइज ठीक है, प्लीज
नीचे चलते रहेंगे,
नीचे चलते रहो, साइड
मेरे साथ साथ। हाँ ठीक है, मैं वहीं से पढ़ता हूँ। हाँ नीचे। तो जो लास्ट वाला है, इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ मैनेजमेंट स्टडीज, बनारस हिंदू यूनिवर्सिटी। President Abdul Kalam had inspired IIT alumni from the different IITs to set up the Wheels Global Foundation. Wheels is an acronym for Water, Healthcare, Education, Energy, Livelihoods and Sustainability. Wheels Global Foundation organized the annual conference on leveraging technology for enhancing social impact. That was a very big conference in USA at the Franklin Institute for Science and Technology, which is in the University of Pennsylvania, which is a Ivy League university. Ivy League सब समझते हैं? But all the students. Ivy League is the top tier universities of USA. जो नंबर 1 पे आती है, तो उनको Ivy League कहते हैं। तो उनमें University of Pennsylvania, तो वहाँ पर हमारा कॉन्फ्रेंस हुआ था, पहला कॉन्फ्रेंस on leveraging technology for enhancing social impact. मतलब टेक्नोलॉजी का कैसे इस्तेमाल किया जाए ताकि सोशल इम्पैक्ट जल्दी से हो सके। तो ये हुआ नवंबर 2018 में। उसके बाद हमने दूसरा कॉन्फ्रेंस किया IIT गांधीनगर में अप्रैल 2019 में, स्मार्ट विलेजेस। स्मार्ट का डेफिनेशन बाद में आएगा भी। वाटर एंड सैनिटेशन, मैटरनल एंड चाइल्ड हेल्थ। तो इसमें फिर जो व्हील्स के लोग हैं, मेनली फर्स्ट ड्राफ्ट I had put together with Dr. Kavita Kapur on a white paper on the Smart Village Development Framework. तो उसके ऊपर फिर बहुत सारी चर्चा हुई गांधीनगर में भी, और फिर वो अडॉप्ट हुआ आफ्टर फाइनलाइजेशन। तो उसमें जो डेफिनेशन, well it could have been if we had decided in time, like here we worked on it. The definition of the SMART process was S is for strengths of the stakeholders. M is for measurable, based on outcomes and impact. A is for applicable and achievable goals. R is for replicable and scalable, means आप scale भी कर सकें। तो पहला पॉइंट ये जो strengths of the villagers, रूरल कम्युनिटी, कि उनके स्ट्रेंथ क्या है, उनके इंटरेस्ट क्या है। तो वो डायलॉग बहुत जरूरी है, और वो डायलॉग होने में परिव्राजक का बहुत बड़ा रोल है। और लास्ट है जो IITs वाले कर सकते हैं और बाकी इंजीनियरिंग इंस्टीट्यूट्स करते हैं, लेवरेजिंग रेलेवेंट टेक्नोलॉजी। 2016 से स्टैनफोर्ड यूनिवर्सिटी अलग से कर रहा था आइडियल विलेज कॉन्फ्रेंस। तो 2020 में व्हील्स और स्टैनफोर्ड यूनिवर्सिटी ने डिसाइड किया कि दोनों 2020, थैंक यू। तो 2020 में व्हील्स और स्टैनफोर्ड यूनिवर्सिटी ने डिसाइड किया कि हम अब, since our goals are aligned, topic is aligned, we will work together. So in 2020 we worked together, in 2021 because of COVID we worked online, and in 2022 we are here with further expansion. ये तो लाइन लगाना भूल गए, ये तो नोट करें, मेरी नोटबुक कहाँ है भैया? Yes. Yeah, that's right. But we are not getting into that fine detail. But like this 2022 BHU coming into the picture, joining. So that we will add 2022 expanded to include BHU. अब बच्चों को भी ये भी सीखना है how in real time these actions happen. All the students of BHU, please see when you go to international gatherings, that's how these things happen in real time basis. Okay. Okay. So 2020 Wheels and Stanford have joined. 2022 Wheels Stanford have now decided to expand with BHU also and do it in India for the first time. And in India for the first time. Okay. अब भाई हमारा तो हो चुका है and in India, let us say BHU. So, given the learnings, diverse global experiences and success stories shared in the previous Ideal Village and Wheels conferences, the theme for this conference is Rural Transformation for Sustainable Growth. One of the key pillars for India's development in the next decade would be to transform rural communities to become engines of global economic growth. And one of the main goals is therefore to launch the National Ideal Village Movement, which intends to impact 20% of the rural population by 2035. So, Yogesh, I'll have to request you to spend some time and sit with me to further fine-tune this. इसके बाद में बैठ जाएंगे. उसमें ऐसा है कि अगर ये बांट भी देंगे वाला कागज, there is no problem because it gives 99% of the intent and content, and the final version will be sent by soft copy to Professor Dubey and others for finally printing it in good shape. This is only photocopying right now. Chapter 3, the 7th Ideal Village Conference, therefore proposes that the Global Institute for Rural Development and Leadership be established at the Institute of Management Studies, Banaras Hind University. Big round of applause. So, Professor Dubey has agreed to work on this with the legal department and others. So, it will be a very big milestone achievement for BHU to have the Global Institute for Rural Development and Leadership into BHU, into the Institute of Management Studies at BHU. तो पूरी दुनिया में नाम बहुत ज़्यादा हाईलाइट हो जाएगा Institute of Management Studies का और BHU का. Okay, so will be established at the Institute of Management Studies on a PPCP, Public-Private Community Partnership basis. Initially, this will be set up as a virtual university. People will not have to come here, so not much space will be required for classrooms or for faculty. And a small physical secretariat at the IMS. Thereafter, branches will be established in all the states of India. These branches will initially start functioning from within any of the established institutes like the IITs. And already Mr. Arun Jain was here with us for the last 2.5 days. He has agreed to support its establishment in Delhi in his campus. So there are more and more people who will join in like that to say that please establish a branch in our area, in our campus, in our institute. Vibha Gupta, who was here from the Magan Sangralaya Samiti, has also agreed to set up the branch in Varda. So the more we talk to people, the more people get very interested and enthused and inspired to request for a branch being set up there. Over time, this will evolve into a university with a physical campus. The initial concept note is attached with this declaration, so that we'll open up next. Mr. Asham Desai, who's very fortunately here with us, He has a lot of experience of setting up the Asham Desai Center for Policy Studies within the IIT Bombay. A big round of applause to him. There is a very big endowment for IIT Bombay to set up the institute there. The Global Institute of Rural Development and Leadership will feature major rural development policy programs and implementation processes from international development agencies, select state and central government agencies, foundations, NGOs, corporate CSR programs, focus on best practices in each of the key tracks, namely agriculture, etc., to thereby better define the future of global rural development. Identify and share best practices in rural development for future scaling. Facilitate research on crafts and ये अरुण जैन का एडिशन था, उन्होंने propose किया कि facilitate research on crafts and local rural arts and their market connect. Additionally, develop better farm to market connect as a strategy to elevate poverty. Launch rural development education programs and collaborative councils at various institutes that will result in a global academic network of rural development centers. So it will not just be India based but global. Establish an international database portal of proven and scalable technology models for rural development in various sectors, and Girdle will also set up a school of design thinking. This is again Arun Jain's suggestion. Why I'm mentioning this is if the students here, if you think of a bright suggestion, now when you frame these documents, you have to understand that in your mind, the picture that you have to create is like a dream vision, the most extreme dream vision. Something which may not even sound practical, because most of the things in the world, most of the advances in the world have been made by people who have just thought out of the box completely, way beyond 10x or 100x of the possibility. Okay, so think like that. Give us suggestions if you have anything. Okay, facilitate innovation. Okay, no, that other point is more important. Girdle will set up a school of design thinking, which will facilitate the creation of the foundation for a rural economy framework which can accelerate long-term sustainable GDP growth globally. Facilitate innovation and adoption of continuous learning models for trust building, which has come out in this. This is Dr. Kavita Kapur's para, based on our discussion for the last 3 days. Facilitate innovation and adoption of continuous learning models for trust building, community leadership through workshops, conferences, impact studies, evidence-based best practices and design thinking. The 7th Ideal Village Conference adopts the Varanasi Declaration, Chapter 4. Chapter 4. Yeah. The 7th Ideal Village Conference adopts the Varanasi Declaration to launch the National Ideal Village Movement. Oh, this is another correction, 2035. To impact 20% of the rural population by 2035 and to establish Global Institute for Rural Development and Leadership at the IM-BHU. So a big round of applause. I'm just going to scroll the Girdle document now. Have you? You have a look while Yogesh, you and I, we can start working on this document. आप लिख के भेजें, वर्बली कुछ नहीं एक्सेप्ट होगा, ये सब लिख के आया जो एक्सेप्ट हुआ है। ठीक है, वो ये करेक्ट कर रहे हैं, तो जैसे वो नीचे, अच्छा तो बच्चों आपको एक रिक्वेस्ट है, the normal adoption of a declaration is by applause. So when we are in the hall downstairs, when this is discussed, after any comments by anybody, then there has to be a very big round of applause, and that is the adoption of the declaration. And for Banaras also, as a town, it is a very good sort of thing which we will send out to the media, and the media will pick up this document as a main document for the conference. The outcome of the conference will be this document as a primary headline document. Okay, milestone document. So thank you very much everybody. For the first time in the last 3 days, we were closed before time.
So
said that he will, after the COVID, he said I will revisit. Support. So that's why we are not taking. We can take it out currently also. Doesn't matter. But since he has not said no officially, we are not taking all the name.
मेरा छोटा सा रिक्वेस्ट था, 4-5 नए लोग हैं, एक 2 लाइन में अपना परिचय।
हाँ जी, ये दे दीजिए, ये बहुत अच्छा कराया।
राकेश टंडन, आर्ट ऑफ लिविंग से।
थैंक यू वेरी मच। हम तो एसोसिएटेड आर्ट ऑफ लिविंग से और यहाँ पर बहुत ज़्यादा लोग एसोसिएटेड हैं।
हाँ।
बहुत सालों से, 20 साल, 25 साल।
I was the first teacher of the Varanasi. In fact, Eastern UP.
Thank you so much. तो योगेश आप यहाँ पर आइए।
राम धीरज हूँ, गांधी विचार जुड़ा हुआ हूँ, राजनीति है, उससे जुड़ा हुआ हूँ और रूरल डेवलपमेंट इसके लिए हम लोग। I am Dr. KVP Singh and Orthopedic Surgeon Institute.
Thank you very much.
मैं देवेंद्र उपाध्याय, लेक्चरर डायरेक्ट चंदौली और संयोजक सत्यमेव जयते वाराणसी में। डॉक्टर मनीष सत्यमेव जयते।
जरा जोर से बोलिए।
डॉक्टर मनीष सत्यमेव जयते।
जैसे आप लोग परिवारजक कहते हैं, मैं यहाँ पे बटुक्स का एक संयोजन कर रहा हूँ।
Hello everyone, I am from IIT Delhi itself, sir. आप लोग भी हैं, मैं गया पढ़ के आया, वापस आया। आप लोग जैसे बात करते हैं कि अपने विलेज वापस आओ, तो मैं यहाँ पे रामनगर है, रूरल एरिया, वहाँ पे वीवर्स के साथ काम करता हूँ, उनको उनके लाइवलीहुड के लिए।
शुक्रदेव पेशे से अधिवक्ता हूँ। पिछले 2 वर्षों से अपने गांव पर
आपको समझाना पड़ेगा, अधिवक्ता
एडवोकेट 2 वर्षों से अपने गांव पर ही एग्रीकल्चरल डेवलपमेंट के लिए वाराणसी से गांव जाके रह रहा हूँ और साथ ही सत्यमेव जयते एक संगठन अपना चलाते हैं हम लोग। मैं उसकी राष्ट्रीय कार्यकारिणी का सदस्य हूँ।
मैं डॉक्टर सत्यमेव जयते, डिप्टी कमिश्नर था, 1 महीने पहले रियासत लिया है। भारत में सत्यमेव जयते का राज्य हो, गाँव हमारे समृद्ध सशक्त से लेकर
कमिश्नर थे
जी। यस,
कमिश्नर के बाद जो होता है
अभी मैंने छोड़ दिया, 1 महीने पहले रियासत
स्टेट गवर्नमेंट
जी। जेएनयू का अलुमनाई हो और सर का छोटा भाई
चलिए, इनका तो पता ही है। आप शर्मा जी अपना परिचय दे दीजिए क्या? नहीं तो प्राण जी को देना पड़ेगा।